Alright, welcome to the 6th episode of Meet the Scene. Today we are featuring Luke, Emperor Ingram, the one and only playing for Rasta. You've kind of gone a bit full circle, by the way, in terms of playing for Rasta now, haven't you? Because it's like it started off with Rasta, then it went, now we're back there. But yeah, just as a little disclaimer to make the start of this, the idea is to release two Meet the Scene videos a week, one on a Sunday, one on a Thursday. That is the main idea, but things will change just because of people's availability. One time they're free, one time they're not. So I'll try and keep it as consistent as possible, but you know what I mean, I can only do so much. Anyhow, we will jump into it. So Emps, so for you, we'll kind of touch on it a little bit. I mean, we just went over it, so you're kind of going to repeat yourself a little bit, I
Yep.
guess. But to me, obviously, you said that you kind of came back into it in 2014, late 2014 to an extent. So I-53 was your first event. But as you said to me, is you were kind of playing before that in like 2013 time period.
Yep.
So what was it that got you into CS originally, and then kind of how did it then go into the team scenarios?
Well, I played Source initially, so way back I
Ooh.
played Source. And I quit like quite late on towards the end of it when it started dying. I didn't touch CS:GO beta, didn't touch it when it first came out. I just wanted to keep away from games.
Sure.
Didn't really enjoy it. And then you just log into Steam one day, don't you? You get curious. And you just see everyone on Global Offensive, you're like, what's this? I made the mistake of asking J-Star, like, oh, so you on TeamSpeak by any chance? Like, jump on. And you just see all these names and you're just like, fuck it. And I'm sat there. I don't even have a PC at this time. I think I've got like literally like one of those work desktops where they just give you, it's like gutted.
Yeah.
It's got nothing. So I could literally load up a browser.
Just that
So
10
it's like,
FPS PC,
yeah, so
basically.
spontaneously I was just like, sod it. I'm gonna buy a PC. I bought a PC. I just started playing. So 2013, I played briefly. Didn't really enjoy the game. I don't know. Like for me, it just didn't feel the same as Source. I know that sounds
Yeah, in fairness, I
a
think
different game, but
yeah.
when you're so used to those kind of games. But I mean, I went to I-49 with like as I said earlier, like 100, 200 hours or whatever. And then thought, don't really have the time to commit. I had a lot going on back home. So I quit till like September 2014. And then I just get asked, I'm on the perilous team speak. Oh, we need a fifth for LAN in Belgium. Our fifth stuck out. Do you want to come? When? This weekend. What, so 2 days time. Yeah. Okay. I just went. Right. Off I went. Took my PC and we drove there. So it took us like 8-9 hours. But I think after I went to that event, I was like, I want to bit some time into this game now. Luckily, my real life had kind of settled down. I had a proper PC that wouldn't crash if I
It does help, doesn't it?
tried to go anything above 800 resolution. But no, and then from there, just I started playing again. I didn't really take it seriously. I mean, I looked for teams and stuff, but I didn't really know myself what I wanted to do. I didn't know how committed I wanted to be. And then I come across Bonnie. Obviously, you know Bonnie,
Yeah, legend is funny.
like a good couple months. And then I joined up with, trying to think, so 2015 this was now. So I joined up with Misfit, Seld, Pommy, and Stanley or XFP, whatever you know him as.
Yeah.
And Jesus, that was a lineup.
I
On
think
paper, you think of it, oh, that's a decent lineup. No.
I think the problem is though is that there's so many like I think you can near enough go to any kind of UK player that's finished within that top like 10 in events in certain scenarios that they've all had it in the past where they've had these potential lineups where on paper you look at the people and you're like, yeah, you know what, that could do really well. But again, whether it be personalities, whether it be just commitment times that people can put in, one reason or another, it doesn't quite work out, right? But yeah, on the face of it, like that lineup would be something that if you had that same lineup now, it would obviously be a very good lineup going into events, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we'll kind of backtrack a little bit. So, I mean, the one thing I did find interesting actually is when you said, because a lot of people I think that played Source were very hesitant to play like CS:GO when it first came out, just because of the changes. It felt a lot differently, and Source was what it was. You know, what I mean, it was a legendary game. Even for me, I think I was like when I kind of Go came out, and I'd played Source a fair amount before, but wasn't too up to date with like the competitive scene of it. And I remember when it got announced on Xbox as well, and I was like, what the fuck? Why are they releasing Counter Strike on Xbox? This is stupid. And I played it a little bit on there because I didn't have a working PC at the time, and then I played it and I was like, yeah, fuck it, I'm getting a PC and I'm just gonna start playing it again. So I think a lot of people might have been in that scenario. But yes, I mean, the interesting one, the Frag-O-Matic one, 2 days prior to kind of the event, you end up going to it, which is always an interesting one when it's an international event at the very least. So I mean, how was that as an event? I mean, when I was looking up like the research for it, it turns out fucking Crucial went to that event and finished second as well for the team that he was playing under. I was like, damn.
Are we on about actual like the event as a finish, or are we on about how it's run?
We'll do both.
Like
We'll go for like the actual playing side of it first. So, what was your experiences? I mean, obviously, I assume it wasn't it was mostly as a fun type mix, I guess, right?
It's odd because they do it out there. They do it similar to Epic, so you get like 3 teams out of groups.
Okay.
And we got out of groups. I went with a mixed team that I've never played with anyone. Literally, like we went with 2 girls, who were in the FM female team at the time, and then Siphon and Reverential, and I never played with any of them.
Yeah.
It was frustrating. It's just frustrating.
Is that just is that the same? I mean, we'll probably touch on it a bit later, but is that just the same experience that you get with any mix to an extent? Is just because if there's no, like the communication's not there, like the way you want to play, you can't really do it, sort of thing, or was it just the people that it just didn't mesh, sort of thing?
I don't know. I think it was the people. I mean, because I was the last guy into it, kind of thing. I felt like I was just there to fill up the numbers, so I didn't have the authority to kind of be like, "Well, we've tried this for 11 rounds, it's not working. Can we try something else?" I've just sat there. I've literally just gone along with the flow, Just even out of groups, I'm drinking. You know what I mean? Like, I'm there for a laugh. There was no expectations within the 5 of us. I think they were just going for fun.
Yeah.
I'd always wanted to go to an international event, even though it's not that far, but I enjoyed it. It was a very good LAN itself and a good experience actually.
So is it something? Because I mean, there's obviously been quite a lot of debate in recent times about UK teams trying to play in kind of international lands, and obviously with Endpoint going CPH recently, like the first team to kind of really go to an international event as a proper team anyway for a while. Would you like? I had the conversations in the past with certain like frag lineups that we had in terms of potentially going to Frag-O-Matic because it was like the weighing up the costs and everything like that, and to us it didn't really seem it would be that much more expensive in comparison to an I-Series. So I mean, from your perspective, how was the event itself, and was the like pricing of everything that you'd done, was it a lot more than what you'd spend at an I-Series essentially?
Well, we drove, so it worked out. Even then, you're driving, it still worked out cheaper. I mean, it's something like 37 euros for a ticket.
Yeah.
You do you know what I mean? Like the event itself, it's so much smoother. I mean, it's not just I-Series is just a Subway. Do you know what I mean? Everyone spends like £100 at Subway. There, they got a proper. It's like a cafeteria. How they do it, or at least how they did it, was you would go in, you would buy stamps, so it's like food stamps. You'd go, okay, 20 euros, 10 euros, and they'd give you 20 stamps. So when you go to buy food, like you can order your burgers, your chips, whatever you want to get, basically. And they just go, okay, here it's 4 stamps, and then you wait in a queue and you pick it up like a McDonald's, like they call it, collect it. I mean, little stuff like that it just goes a long way. Do you know what I mean? They had casual things on the side, like they had like table tennis tournaments. They had like little football table tournaments. You know what I mean? Like little things like that just made it such a more community based event. I mean, we didn't know any of the teams there. Obviously, there was a couple of people that members of my mix had spoken to online, so I kind of tagged along, spoke to them. But even then, they still make you feel a little more welcome. It's a smaller venue, so everyone is in literally the same hall. So you only have to walk down 100 meters and you can go find the team that you've just played or someone you want to talk to. In terms of the caliber of teams, I mean, going back to it, I can't tell how good I was, and I was probably fucking awful. Joey, like beyond bad, but it definitely felt like there was more depth than I-Series. I remember that LAN, they had a couple of teams from Germany go over, a French mixed team, if I remember rightly. So I mean, it does attract teams, and just how it's ran by the admins. And no disrespect to the I-Series admins, they do put a lot of work in, but they could learn a thing or two how they do it. It's just the scheduling how they do it. They had 32 team bracket best of 3s in the upper, and still managed to run it on schedule to finish without 6 a.m. finishes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll touch on that one again later in terms of the way that those tournaments are run, and I do. It's really difficult to say, to be fair. I mean, I think if we start that convo now, we'll end up going into like a half hour 45 conversation on it. So we will cross that bridge. But yes, I mean, was obviously you'd been to I-49. You said obviously then you go Frag-O-Matic as well. So it's not that's two decent events to kind of go to on the initial front. But then obviously the first kind of team one that you ended up playing with was I-53. So I-53 for me was my like first CS event. Well, not first CS event, first I series that I've been to in like a long period of time, because I kind of stayed out of esports after COD 1, COD 2, COD 4, and then kind of came back to it for CSGO predominantly.
Apologise for the dogs. Hang on.
Yeah,
Close up
it's all
fucking things.
right. But yeah, so I-53 is obviously playing under the wonderful legend that is Blanks for Rasta at that time period. So roster-wise, it was Bunny, who obviously legend, played with him. You had Roy, CJME, Solid, and yourself. Finished 13th to 16th. How was your your opinions on that one? Was it? I mean, in fairness, when I was looking through it, the teams that you lost to were all very good teams. So it wasn't as if you kind of placed that and lost to certain teams that you shouldn't. Like they're all teams that you'd look at now and you'd still put them in that kind of higher end, like top 3, top 4 sort of placements. So kind of how was that event for you?
To me, it was when I started to dislike I-Series.
Because I mean, I-53 was at Rico still, wasn't it?
Yes, I think. Yeah, I think so. I can't actually remember. But in terms of the event, it was off-putting because I was in a team that we didn't know how to play properly. Like, didn't know how to efficiently prac, didn't know how to, me and Bunny kind of joined it as a pair, if I remember rightly. And we just we left pretty much after I-Series. We had different aspirations, so we say.
Sure.
But it just made me. That was the start of the decline with my wanting to go to I-Series. Playing, you got 3 teams in groups, like including yourself. 3 teams in groups. It's the first I-Series that I've been to properly with a team, and I'm thinking, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to be going to I-Series with 3 teams in groups? Then you get out of groups, you play a best of 3, you get battered. Our map pool. If I told you our map pool, you'd laugh. Dust 2 and a little bit of cash. And when I say a little bit of cash, we had 2 straps. Like, do you see what I mean? Like, I'm sitting there and I've sat there and I'm thinking to myself, I'm listening to all these excuses to why we're getting beat, and I'm just sat there thinking, no, this is not what I want. If I want to play properly, I want to go about it differently. And then, so me and Bunny left after LAN, but that one was my first wake up call. I think that kind of gave me a direction in where I wanted to go with teams, what I kind of wanted to aim for finishes wise at LAN. I mean, 13th to 16th on paper isn't terrible, No,
it's I mean, the thing is, it depends, right? Because I mean, and I guess we'll touch on it when we go to over like the Epic 18 results as well, and like the 5th to 6th placement there. But like, it does highly depend, right? Because I mean, I-Series is I-Series, so sometimes you'll get 80 teams sign up for it, and there's a good 20 teams that can all kind of play really like to a decent level at the very least. But then at the same point, you could go to another I-Series, and there's only 10 teams that can play to a decent level at least. So like the placement that you get is obviously highly dependent on the amount of like higher teams that go for it. So it's very difficult to judge like one event from another event. But yeah, I mean, when you look through it, I mean, you've got like the Infused line up there, so Fearless, Pulse, Red Snake, Shiki, Zed. Obviously Vexstar had a good like run of games when they were playing. So obviously Defin,
they were in groups with us.
Yep. FM, Mike's, Nilzino at the time, Rattlesnake, Weber, Windown. Like, there's so many good teams, sort of thing, that were there at that event.
I think you even had AT Gaming from
there was
Netherlands come over.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird, actually, that being said. I think, like, here and there, you don't really get that many international teams that come over to play CS at an I-Series. It does happen now and again. I mean, we had the Romanian team, XPC, wasn't it, that won, like, was it I-58, maybe, I think it was?
Before the dilemma with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's obviously that was kind of the I-53 summit. But so, obviously, you just touched on it then, and that's kind of what gave you the like realization of kind of the way that you maybe should be playing if you are going to be playing in a team and things like that. So what was the kind of decision behind then? Obviously you took a break again after that event, did you not?
Yeah. Yeah. Continue. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, so obviously, so what was the decision to then take a break after the I-53, where you've kind of had those thoughts of the way that you want to be playing in a team? So what led you to then take the break?
The time that I put into playing with that Rasta lineup.
Yeah.
You know, you turn up at 7, you play till like 10:30. You know, you're committing 3-4 hours of your time. But I thought to myself, if I want to have a proper go at this, I want to make sure that I can allocate the appropriate time that I need to. I wanted to take a step back and learn the game as well.
Sure.
Where I'd kind of taken so many breaks, it just felt like, you know, I'd load up Counter Strike, jump on the server and play, and I didn't learn.
Sure.
So it was kind of like a hiatus more than just, you know, taking a complete step away. I focused on myself. I spoke to players that I looked at wanting to be involved with, and just took it slowly. I mean, after that, I took at least, I'm thinking about 5-6 months. Nothing materialized in terms of teams, but I felt where I'd taken that appropriate break, I'd lined up work so that I could dedicate the amount of time that needed, you know, for most teams in the week. Because I think a lot of people also forget is even at any level, you still got to have adequate amount of time.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
In fairness, one of the big things with say like Endpoint, in fairness, with the like in that even within that year that they were kind of on salaries and things like that, in fairness they were only small salaries to the point where the schedule still remained the same as what it was if they weren't getting it anyway, so sort of thing, right? So it didn't really make, obviously it's helpful, but it doesn't really make that much of a difference in terms of the game itself at that point. Whereas now obviously they're kind of in that time frame, and other teams are now where they kind of are able to play more than that kind of 7 to 11 practice slot that most UK teams seem to end up playing, right? So obviously, yeah, you had the kind of retirement, so to speak, or mini retirement. But then obviously you came back 2015 early. So obviously that was what we kind of touched on. You touched on a little bit earlier in terms of the Misfit, Stanley, Pommy. What was the big reason that nothing kind of materialized from that then? Like, why didn't it go to events? Why didn't it work?
we always had the idea of going to events. I think I refunded my Epic tickets like 3 events in a row.
Proper Lan Dodger, ain't you?
I've got it all sorted. I think what happened was when we initially started up the team, there was about a month until LAN. Then initially we had JDD in the team.
Yeah.
I mean, he left. Then obviously you spend a couple of weeks looking for a 5th, and then some members of the team were like, "Oh, we don't really want to go if we're underprepared." Then someone else quits, and it's the same scenario. So what happened was by the middle of the year, we had cycled through a couple of players, so that you ended up with the lineup that you said. And then just Pommy was just Pommy, wasn't he? Like, just middle of track, you know, you're going Pommy. You doing this? You learn this. You can just, you know, he's on Snapchat. You know, he's sitting there like, it's just, I love him, but Jesus, he made things difficult. And I think it just went to shit towards the start of. I'm trying to think what LAN it was. 55. Basically, we had Stanley in our team,
Yeah.
and yeah, he basically said to us, "Sorry, Stanley, for grassing you in here," but basically he said, "Oh yeah, I'm not enjoying the game. You know, I'm going to quit, take a break from it, whatever." Lo and behold, he's agreeing to go to LAN at the same time with what would be Bertie, Maxi B, what would later become the Monumentalist.
I mean, yeah, you know what, like Snod said it in the last one as well, in terms of that there was a point where he kind of pretended that he was offline in on like Steam and everything to then go practice with another team, and even he turned around and said after, he was like, it was a really snaky way of doing it. But at the same point, like the thing that I pointed out was it is something that does actually happen quite frequently when people do it, right? Like to an extent, it's such a weird process. I guess people say it because they don't want to piss someone off, and obviously if that opportunity that they've got doesn't work out, then they still kind of want to potentially be in and around that team that they're already in. But it's awkward because then from that team's perspective, if you know someone in your team's always looking for another option, then you don't really want to practice with that guy anymore, do you? Because you want someone that's going to be committed.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I guess that's not exactly an ideal situation at that point. Obviously, if Stanley's going that way, and Pommy being Pommy, who I guess at the time, even my experiences of Pommy, as much as I absolutely love that dude, but it was kind of one of the ways that when he first came across, anyway, I thought maybe it was just like his attention span was quite short in terms of he'd always get like in terms of being able to get distracted. He could be distracted very very easily.
The nicest way you can put it.
Yeah, like absolutely lovely. And in fairness, he has worked on it like quite a bit. Like in comparison to say, like even with the Frag scenario, from what he was like at the start to what he was like at the end, then I did feel like he was a lot more like on the ball towards the end of things for sure. So yeah, I mean, obviously, unfortunately, that lineup didn't work out. Same as what we said. Like there's a lot of go on.
I say that like it didn't work out, but it was kind of like the transition to what later would become Barrage, basically. When we removed, when XFP Stanley left, and we got rid of Pommy, or did Pommy leave? I can't remember. We then started to bring in what would later be the Barrage players, so Logsy, Jenko, Dreams, Fisher, and those. So in hindsight, you could probably say it worked out for the best. I mean, on paper, as you said, some lineups don't work out. But I can't say anything bad because Stanley said, and to me, since I got no hard feelings, whatever. He said like maybe I should have just said I just want to leave. As you touched upon, like, it's no hard feelings. I mean, it's just one of those things where you would just waste months and months and months, and then you start thinking to yourself, I've got to start from scratch again.
I think also, I mean, you got to think, I guess, at the time as well, like the age of Pommy and Stanley at the time, they're both like 16 odd at that point, right? So obviously it's quite, I guess in those scenarios, they don't necessarily know the best way to deal with those situations, if that makes sense. Like it's kind of new to them of how to deal with it. So you kind of go with whatever you think's the best decision, even if it's not the right one. But yeah, I guess it is. It's always going to be a difficult one for when you've got people of that sort of age. But I mean, I've had this a few times with people in terms of like the youngsters, their mentalities and everything. And I guess it's just something that everyone's got to experience. Like I've made plenty of mistakes when I was younger. I guess you've probably done the same thing. So has fucking everyone at this point, right? But yes, obviously, like you said, that kind of touched on the Barrage lineups. Obviously, yourself, Logsy, Fisher, Jenko, Dream. EP06 was the kind of one and only event I think you went to under Barrage. So how did the Barrage like scenario come around in a way, lineup and organization wise?
Well, we first joined them when it was like me, Pommy, Sailed Misfit. So we joined them then, and they were quite happy for me to like make the changes that were needed. I mean, Sailed and Misfit, they kind of phased out towards when they joined uni. Obviously, first years in uni, you just want to go and do what you want to do. So then this led to me picking up Jenko and Dream, and initially we had Philo instead of Fisher. The funny thing is, if about Jenko is no one at the time would actually pick him up. It's hard to believe. If you say it now, no one would pick him up, right?
What was due to his age? Due to
just age? Yeah. Like when you not because of his maturity or anything. Literally, he would apply for teams and you'd go, I'm 15, and they would go, no thanks. Do you know what I mean? And it's like
I think a lot of people have always been in that, like, especially if you've maybe got older people in the team, like you look at it straight away, and especially if you've got like, I mean, some people don't like having pre-18-year-olds, let alone pre-16-year-olds, right? So obviously, because everyone just imagines it's going to be that squeaky voice kid, that kid that's going to be annoying, the kid that's not going to learn or whatever it necessarily. That's the way that people assume it to be, though, a lot of the time, isn't it? But I guess at the same point, like someone else's loss was your advantage at the time, right?
It's hard to say. Like, we were all young. Like I say, we all young. I like to think I'm still young, but yeah, that lineup itself was a young lineup itself. Do you know what I mean? So you kind of you got to take chances. Like if you've got 17, 18-year-olds in your team, you can't really then say to a 15, 16-year-old, no, I'm not going to give you a chance. I mean, there's so much I could go on about, and I probably will say later about the younger players and their mentalities and stuff. But there was nothing to suggest that he had anything other than the right mentality.
Sure.
I mean, I think it helped as well with that lineup. We all were friends. Do you know what I mean? Like it's the old cliche of to make lineups work, you got to be friends. But the enjoyment from that lineup, I think they can all sit there now and say, you know, how it all ended was a bit of a fuckery. Excuse my French, but
yeah. I mean, it's at the same point, I guess. there's a lot of teams that you could probably put that down, like the similar scenario onto, right? Is even if even when they get together, everything's always rosy, and it's when the difficult parts start coming up and things go wrong of how you deal with it, right? And I guess it maybe in that scenario more so is when you have got those younger players that those scenarios don't get fixed, or people's like want to get them fixed is a lot less when they kind of think, oh well, fuck it, we'll just move on to somewhere else and go from there, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of Barrage as an organisation, how was it playing under them? Like you said, they kind of gave you a bit of free reign to an extent in terms of making the roster decisions. But
It was a bit of an odd one. Like, we didn't really have strenuous contact with them. Like, it was sporadic. Like, it would just be like now and then we would speak to them. I think from their perspective, they were trying to find their feet in CS:GO and UK scene, so
yeah,
they're kind of just going with the flow, using as kind of as a guinea pig, shall we say,
sure.
and see, like, we'll let them see how it goes, so we can kind of sit from their perspective. So they kind of left us to it. As long as we were progressing, I think the main thing for us, we were still progressing. Like, even though we had changed lineups, we had gone from like UK Open to intermediate to main. Like we
Sure.
had gone up the leagues. So for them, I think when we went to LAN, they had zero expectations of us. I think when we spoke to them on Skype, I was keeping in contact with them on Skype over the LAN event. I think we sneaked 16th seed. Yeah, we snuck 16th seed. I think it was only because they saw Fisher's name in the lineup, because obviously he'd been in CX. They were like,
Yeah.
well, we can't be playing with complete noobs. So, yeah, I suppose we'll give them a seed. But yeah, they were a good org until we just kind of had an issue towards the end when we wanted to leave at post LAN. I changed lineups because of what happened after ISOs. I mean, I can elaborate on that if you want to.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. It's all part of the
So
fun.
yeah, I'm gonna just expose some players here. So big up, big up all them. Fisher basically gave us the runaround. Said, "Yeah, I'll stay. I'll leave. I might leave. I'll stay. I might leave." Speaking to teams at LAN, he ended up joining CX again afterwards. Jenko, Dream, Logsy wanted to bring in Stanley and AMF, which is now Fry One,
Mhm.
whatever anyone wants to call it. I know which one he hates, but and they basically said to me on Christmas Day, left me an offline Steam message and said, "Yeah, we're going to trial them too. If it doesn't work
on
out."
Christmas Day, did you say?
Yeah, like I'm not even on Christmas Day. I'm offline. Logsy's just left me a message saying, "Yeah, we're going to trial with these two. If it doesn't work out, we might come back to you." Like, well, thanks, I suppose.
Yeah,
Like,
it's not really going to do much for your motivation to want to play with them at that stage, I guess, is it? It's kind of like, well, thanks for
yeah.
making me a last-ditch option. It's appreciated.
So then I was like, fuck this, off I went. And I picked up what would now be the core of my current team. So it kind of gave me a reality check of I can't be asked with people who are just going to fuck me around, find excuses, just, change players all the time. It sounds odd for me to say, obviously, with the previous lineups already, that I'd already made changes, but we had no reason to. We'd gone to I-56, finished 9th to 12th. We lost to CX, who obviously won it. We lost 16, 13, and 16. I want to say 16, 14. And one of those, Dream came off a 10-second defuse. When they're all dead.
Yeah. You mentioned this.
Those little things don't happen. And then they go after LAN. Oh, we want to change players. Why? Oh, because why not? I think Logsy gave the excuse of something like, oh, I just want to be able to basic IGL and let the others run around and shoot things. You know what I mean? Like, what kind of validation is that to wanting to remove a player after LAN? So I was like, I just want to play with players with no egos, start from scratch, build my own project, and partly selfishly to prove to the other guys that I could make a competent team.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, the one thing that I will touch on, because this is kind of, it's happened previously in some of the videos as well, is that, e.g., the person that I'm speaking to, so you in this instance, obviously not necessarily calls out, but just explains obviously certain like reasons as why certain teams didn't work out, and you know what I mean. But was there anything that you'd say from your perspective that you could have done better as well? Because obviously everyone's always going to kind of call out the certain scenarios that other people have made, but obviously some of the time there is like more influence that you yourself or the other person I'm talking to might have made some errors in judgment or things like that to kind of make those scenarios happen, if that makes
I
sense.
think if I'm going to be honest, my fragging power.
Okay. But as an IG, were you IGLing at the time as well?
Yeah.
So
But
yeah,
I think even then, my IGLing wasn't what it is now. I've spent a lot of time in the last year breaking it down, learning stuff, speaking to people. But even then, like they would because it was a young team mentality. Like anyone, who are the younger players, they look at everything at face value. So stats. You must be getting 20 frags, otherwise you're not
yeah, sure.
So if I have the off game, like at LAN, I've got screenshots of every game because you're so self-conscious. Obviously, you want to keep an eye out, and you're like, just in case anyone ever says to you, "Oh, but you didn't frag at LAN," and then
Well,
you shove a
here's the
bunch of
fucking
screenshots in
proof.
their face. Do you see what I'm saying? It was that bad, and I think that's what it was. They just wanted to bring in some players where they could have a little bit more fragging ability, whether or not that was at the expense of, you know, myself or someone else. Logsy was another one in the team that was questioned a few times for his ability to frag, but how they were going to change the team meant they could just run around and shoot things, and he could kind of coast along. And I don't want to say made a scapegoat, but I can definitely see it from their perspective if you're going to look at face value. But then again,
Yeah,
you
I mean,
look at behind the scenes.
I guess at the end of the day, Dream and Logsy especially, and like no flame towards them obviously, but at the same point in recent rosters that they've had, they have always been that predominantly mixed type lineup, right? More so than actual dedicated teams. I think that is like, well, I know for Dream that's kind of changed now, not so much Logsy, I guess, until something new comes out. But like, yeah, they've predominantly been mix-esque players. So I mean, I guess it varies, right? Some people play in mixes because they just naturally enjoy it. They don't have the time to put in like to proper practice in 5 days a week sort of thing. So they just kind of go with that style of it, and it works out better for them, and they probably enjoy it more, right? Like, 'cause there's nowhere near the same amount of pressure as what you've got as when you're playing as an actual lineup and when you're playing under an organization sort of thing, right? But yeah, you did touch on it, and obviously that's kind of then how the start of the then XL lineup essentially, right?
Yep.
So yourself, Ghost, Calvin, Coral, Socks initially, but then obviously he was replaced by Taylor. So I mean, I do kind of want to touch on the Taylor scenario as well as kind of what the fallout from that was. 'Cause I remember that blew up a little bit at the
Yep.
time as well. But yeah, so I mean, what was how did that one come about? How did the XL one opportunity come out? Because I mean, at the time, XL would get that was like their first move into CS predominantly, right? Wasn't it? Because I mean, they'd been a very console orientated org before that. So yeah, how did that whole scenario come about?
Well, initially Barrage, I think, because they had quite a few sponsors
Yeah.
coming their way, so Barrage were actually really upfront about it. They were like, they ended up sending that infused mix to Epic,
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
and they initially wanted to sign them full time, but their main sponsor pulled all their sponsorships.
Oh,
So
this was no. I remember the whole Barrage scenario of how then they kind of folded as an org after. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
they basically lost all their financial power. So what happened was they had negotiated with Excel and vouched for us, and said like these guys are keen, they want to improve. And Excel had a lineup before. They had Chronic, Rezu, I think it was Rezu, Andrew, all those. They played that long game against Xenex, the longest.
I remember hearing about it. Yeah, I didn't watch it, but
Yeah,
I did get told
they had
about
that
it.
lineup before, and they were kind of wanting to come back anyway.
Okay.
And when I spoke to the owners of Excel, apparently I gave them a nice, good vibe.
Nice guy, Emp.
And yeah, good guy, strikes again. But and that it was kind of by fluke because we weren't actually looking to change orgs. So when we did swap over to Excel, and then you see Barrage go under, you just kind of think we've actually struck lucky here.
Yeah, I mean, it could have gone a lot worse, right?
Yeah, but initially, like I will touch upon this later as well with teams and organizations. We joined them for free, nothing.
Yeah.
Like when I said to them, we want to be picked up, we'll join you for free. We'll do everything incentive based, result based, and then go from there. I mean, and that's how it came across. It was pure luck with a little bit of sweet talking.
Emp's good old sweet talking. I'll see what happens with that in the future. I'll see how we go. But I mean, that being said, I mean the Barrage one, if I'm not mistaken, now I got told a certain bit of information that apparently their head sponsor was actually a different person that run a different organisation that was essentially just funding them, which would have been Nifty, which would have been Exertus at the time. And so even when I got told that, it was such a a very shady way, essentially, of running things. Like, and I know at the time, especially, I mean, I think it was Barrage, it was Hadshot, wasn't it? The gen that was running it. And I know he always had the best of intentions. He genuinely did. But it was a very. It kind of just goes to show the depths that people will go to try and make an org succeed when they, I mean, even though they know it's not the best option to take and rely upon it, but they still do it anyway because they feel like they can try and get that edge. But yeah, I mean, Barrage is up and running now under new ownership, if I'm not mistaken. So, but yeah, so with the XL stuff, obviously you kind of joined them, you're playing for free, which I find it a bit interesting, is especially, I mean, I assume like myself, and I've seen it from when I used to receive a lot of them, and when I've seen like tried helping other teams getting into organizations, and I see they're kind of like the applications that they kind of have that they send around to certain orgs, and it's fucking horrible, dude. It genuinely is. Like, I don't understand the logic of people in terms of, especially when they're like, when they want something, when they're trying to get money out of you as an organization, and they literally just send you the most like shambolic application. It's like 2 sentences. You have no idea who. Yeah, and it's just kind of like, at the end of the day, treat it as if you are literally applying for a job. You know what I mean? Put in that information. Like, at the end of the day, if the way I generally look at it is, if teams have to apply for organizations, more often than not, they're not going to be the best pickup that you can get in a lot of the times, because of the best teams are ones that generally get scouted, right? That's the way that you kind of make that assumption. So from that point on, if you're then trying to go down the application route, then surely you've got to sell yourself to the point, like, if I get applications through, I'm not going to then spend God knows how much time, my own time, trying to research and find information about that team, right? Like, you're the ones that want something, so send me that info. And I assume that might have been something that you wanted to touch on a little bit in terms of like when you were saying about teams and organizations. But
it's like, even with XL, even though we got vouched for by Barrage, I still writ a constructive email. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then broke it down in further conversations. Then I had a Skype call, and then, you know, expressed what we could offer as much as they could give us.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, even though we're joining them for free, I still wanted to be able to say to them, we can offer this, this, and this.
Yeah.
Because it's selling points. And people, it actually triggers me when I see some of the applications. I actually think, like, has this even worked in the past for you to think I'm going to do it again? Like,
it's slightly scary to an extent, because I mean, again, I've had this conversation before, and this is kind of where I feel like the inflation comes into it a little bit, is because of, especially to newer orgs that are trying to get into it, and you kind of touched on it, like a Barrage did to an extent, maybe with you guys, where they kind of pick you up as that not necessarily stepping stone, but entrance into the scene sort of thing, right? So when they don't have that much knowledge about it, as to say what more experienced orgs do, then that's how those sort of orgs end up paying for teams to go to events that finish in the top 30. You know what I mean? They kind of, and that's how it goes. And then from other points, then more teams are like, oh, if this team's that's finishing like 30th at LAN is getting funded, then we want funding, right? Like, and that's how it kind of triggers down. But yeah, some very weird applications from teams for sure, and we'll get into that a bit more later, 100%. So yeah, with that lineup, obviously, what was the initial like change that you made was socks for Taylor. So what was the reason behind that? And then we'll go on to the Taylor stuff as well.
Socks, I don't want to, obviously, I have a lot of respect for Socks, so I'm not going to go into it, but he has a lot going on back home. Just stuff that meant that he couldn't play. He was pretty upfront about it, and, you know, no hard feelings. You know,
yeah, for sure. It happens, right?
Yeah, there's an issue where people mistake some changes. So people, obviously, from people looking outwards, inwards, they think, oh, they're making another roster change. You know what I mean? Like, but if it's a genuine reason, like an organization, even Excel, for example, they were like, that's fine. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's something that can't be helped. It's something that needs to be done. And yeah, then it led to us picking up Taylor, which
didn't go too well.
Yeah, that was fun. We'll go straight into it. So,
yeah, just go.
Basically, he was playing for Cult Killers or something, and I'd watched him a couple of times, and on face value, again, just looking at him performance-wise, he was a standout player. Like, the issue we had as a team was we hadn't done anything. I had 3 guys that hadn't been in teams before, so me being the only person with a slight bit of experience, attracting players to come join us was near impossible. Like, you can't go on Steam and go, I don't know, you message someone now and be like, do you want to come try? And they'd be like, who are you playing with? You list the names and they go, no thanks.
Yeah.
So you have to then kind of go into that depths of retake players, and Do you know what I mean? It's just, yeah, so we took a chance on Taylor, we picked him up. At first, he genuinely seemed really keen. He was like, "Yeah, I'll go watch demos. I'll do this. I'll do that." And it was fine up until about a month before Epic Land, and then for whatever reason, I think it was after UK Masters where
Yeah.
we narrowly missed out. We lost to Shiki's team in overtime, third map.
Okay.
Whatever. And then I think for whatever reason, something triggered in Taylor's mind that we're a decent team. I'm a decent player. Therefore, I must have an attitude. Or, do you know what I mean? Like,
The
I
start of
don't.
the UK ego, essentially, right? Like,
Yeah, and it started to conflict with players in the team. And when I tell you this, I compromised on all levels. I tried moving in bomb sites, moved in with different partners. I gave him more freedom. I let him do things just to see if it would, just
change the way he plays, sort of thing,
yeah.
or his mentality.
And we went to Epic, um, came 5th to 6th.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I mean, you got through groups. I think you lost to Eminem in groups. I think it was.
Weird 2 format those.
Yeah, no, it was a weird one. I do remember it. But then, I mean, kind of again, actually. I mean, you didn't do too bad. I mean, I think, yeah, you lost to Infused as well in like the first. No, I think that was the second stake. I think you beat Divine. But then you beat Exertus, which had a decent lineup. You beat Playhack, which I think was like the cookie lineup at the time. And then obviously you lost to the mighty Frag in the end, which obviously, but it was still actually a decent packed out event. Like some of the players that generally don't go to Epic because they don't deem it big enough still kind of went to that event. So I mean, 5th to 6th wasn't bad, right? Like it was still reasonably decent. I think obviously that UFrag lineup at the time was probably one of the strongest lineups that we had at that point as well. I think if I'm not mistaken, Epic 18 would have been the power lineup. Yeah, so it would have probably been Pow, Ash, Yoshi, Hype, and Adam, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I think it's when you had SEO mixing for you. I think you
Was
had
that
SEO,
Epic 18 as well?
Jakey, Pow, Adam, JT.
Was that Epic 18?
Yeah, that far back.
It actually was, yeah, it would have been. So it would have been Pow and JT, yeah. So that was probably the demise of when we started doing shit as well, to be fair, to an extent.
Oh, great. Makes me feel better.
Yeah, just so if we were shit, you were twice as shit. But yes, I mean, obviously that happens. I mean, like, what was essentially that was your first Epic LAN, was it not? So I mean, how was what was your opinions on Epic in contrast to say like other events that you've been to, or just in general?
I go Epic every time. If I have a chance to go to Epic Land without dodging, I will go to one. I enjoyed it. Format, the scheduling, even actually the scheduling was a bit of a pain. It felt like sometimes we had a whip behind us. You have to play these games. But in terms of iSeries, you get your money for value, competent teams you're playing against, a decent best of 3 bracket. Just all in all, more favourable for me. I mean, I can only get 5 lands out of the 6 off.
Yeah.
So obviously I'm going to prioritise Epic. But we went with 4 players that had never been to LAN. I was the only one that had been to LAN. So we got there, and the guys were like, super buzzing for LAN. They were drinking energy drinks from day one for like 48 hours. I'm sat there like, guys, you don't want to be doing this. You don't want to be doing this. But yeah, I think that gave them the kind of insights that we weren't actually a bad team.
Sure.
And I think it would have been make or break personally for me, if I had gone to a LAN and either they had crumbled or we had crumbled as a team. I'd kind of gone away from it. At the age that I am, I would have been like, I can't be arsed anymore.
So I mean, my question on that one would be though, is if you're then having that kind of thought process, but when you're going into the event and you're going into it with like essentially 4 other inexperienced people, then doesn't that kind of then come onto it like as a decision from yourself sort of thing? Because if you're going into it with inexperienced people, then I guess the kind of chances of it maybe not going to plan are going to be a bit higher in that scenario, are they not?
Well, what it was if we hadn't done as well as we did online, I would have had a different perspective.
Okay.
But because we had done well in ESEA, like I had the page from the old Barrage team on ESEA, so we were in intermediate. So literally dumped them on that. We played Masters, played qualifiers. And if we hadn't done so well online, and I thought to myself, okay, we're going to go to this Epic LAN, I've got 4 inexperienced players, chances of not getting out of groups are pretty high, then I would have been like, whatever.
Yeah.
But if we had gone to that event and done as well as we did online, to then go there, I think we got seeded as well, like 7th or something.
Yeah, I think it was around that 7th, 8th, something like that. Yeah.
yeah, and then not got out of groups. You know, you sit there and think, what's going wrong for them to be playing as well as they are online? And I know people say, "Oh, yeah, it's their first lands, whatever," but there's still you should still be able to, you know, put at least
Yeah.
80% of what you do online to offline.
I guess kind of that's probably where going to Epic first over an iSeries is probably a bit more beneficial as well. 'Cause I think people generally, when they go to Epic, it is a bit more of a laid back atmosphere, so you kind of don't feel the pressure as much as iSeries. Everyone does big it up to be the kind of main tournament, even though, yeah, I mean, everyone's got their gripes with it, but it still is that kind of main one that people prioritize from a placement perspective as kind of where teams fit in the UK standings to an extent, right? But yeah, so I mean, obviously that happened, and so what was the kind of the demise of after that event then, essentially? So obviously you still placed reasonably well, but then again, that was like, I mean, did you leave XL after that event? Was it?
No, no, no. We didn't leave Excel till New Year.
Was it New
So
Year's? So, but I mean, at that point, that was because of the XL kind of. I assume they'd gone to you and said, "Look, we've got these more resources. We want to try and aim for this top three team, essentially, that we can try and get in now." Was it along those sort of lines? Because I mean, that's the way it came across to everyone from the outside,
are
in
we
a way.
going to touch upon this now, or do you want to wait till later? Because I'll quite happily.
Oh, fuck it, let's go for it now.
All right. So after I series, basically after I did my famous dodge, um, they took a team under Excel
Yeah.
to I series, and they had a management in place there that basically said to members of the team, "Oh, you know, it doesn't matter about your finish here. We still want to keep you. You know, or I'm going to try my hardest to." You know, keep you with us and whatnot. And we'd had our issues with them leading up to the event. I mean,
Okay.
we had stupid stuff like they wouldn't update the website for like 5
Mhm.
months. Do you know what I mean? Like it's basic stuff where I'm having to go into the WhatsApp and be like, "Can you update the website? Can we get our fifth on the website, please? Can you update the bios? Can you update the pictures?" And they go, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah." And it's just little things like that start to accumulate. We had something like Crizzy because they have a thing in Excel mandatory where everyone has to sign the contracts.
So that's
Right.
what I right. So this is what I was going to touch on, and like, I don't get you wrong, I don't really want to do this series as a point of like like throwing shit around and you know what I mean, to certain points, but I had various people that wasn't in that XL lineup at the time come to me and say how dodgy things were going, which I guess was kind of from whether it be yourself or other people in the lineup that had spoke to other people, and that message kind of passed along the line, sort of thing. But
There's
yeah, I got told a lot of kind of shady shit happened from the
Oh
XL
yeah.
standpoint in that.
Um, well, there was other teams under Excel that I know on different platforms, different games
Yeah, I
that
mean,
had
I'm
expressed
yeah, I'm the same.
they had expressed you know their discontent in the
Sure.
org to org owners that I had contact with.
Yeah.
So obviously that then reflects. I get org owners coming to me going, you know, how are you guys doing over there? And you know, something's being
Sure.
leaked. You know, buggers come out and said something. But no, we had issues like we all had to sign contracts after Epic because we started then getting funded because
Okay.
obviously we joined them for nothing, and they do it as a mandatory thing just so they can have a backlog of stuff.
Yeah.
And we picked up Crizzy after Taylor. We'll go back to this in a minute,
Yeah.
but he didn't get his contract for 7 months. But when they pick up the Smoothers team or whatever, and they start changing fifths every day, they were getting their contracts straight in the emails. They were getting the websites updated straight away. They were getting their servers updated. Do you see where I'm coming from? It's hindsight of respect. It doesn't matter where your team is in the UK standings. If you've got a team like us that have been under them for 11 months, 12 months, right? We'd give them a good name. We hadn't been online where we just shit talked everyone, played in streamed UK games and started calling it the team's noobs. You see where I'm coming from here? Like it's just a respect thing of getting things done.
I mean, like, even from my point of view, the way I'd assessed it is like, look, fair enough from Excel's point. If you've got like well, I mean, come that time period when you've maybe got to change your plans from the organisation, but obviously it seems that certain things were happening before that. So I mean, I got told certain like clauses and certain bits that were in that contract of which I thought was shady as fuck, especially at kind of that level of CS. I mean, again, I've had that conversation with Snods in the previous episode about contracts. So it's very difficult to implement contracts at that level until you get salaried in the first place. I understand why organisations do it, to try and keep a bit more structure, to keep a bit more professionalism and everything. I get that. But yeah, some of the bits that I was told, and I can't 100% say it's for sure, and I'm not going to start throwing like shade around the whole point in this, but because I've had a lot of people tell me certain things about that scenario, it would then lead to believe that they were true, and kind of from what you're saying as well. But like, I agree in the point that at the end of the day, it's just down to like common decency and respect, right? And the way that they treat you whilst you're under them. Like, if they don't agree with certain things you're doing, then fair enough. But say that, don't like just kind of keep it quiet, or don't just kind of long you guys off in a way, right? Like,
yeah, it was just like at the time we didn't really think anything of it, right? You just think, they're just being a bit slow. But when they then pick up another team and they're getting everything done within 12 hours, 8 hours, 24 hours, and you sit there and you think, were we really that bad that you had to show us disrespect?
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's like, even you said, like, it's fair enough, right? If they want to go that way, then you have no problems with it. Like, but just say it. Don't like act one way with one guy and like differently with the others, right? So yes, here, go on.
If we're gonna go onto the topic of when they were saying to us like, we wanna pick up another team. I mean, I can tell you how this went. Dragged us into a Skype call. We were speaking about, funny enough, going to Frag-O-Matic in February, I think it was, or whenever the one just gone was.
Sure.
March. Basically, the idea was I made a promise to the guys was if we remained a team for a year, I would pay out of my own pocket to send us to an event abroad. Right. That was the promise that I made. So we hinted at it in WhatsApp, and this is when we started to get a bit of an odd vibe. Like, this was just after I-59.
Okay.
And they were like, yeah, we need to have a talk and have a catch up. Okay. Right. And then, so I jump into a Skype call, and I promise not to like kind of say what the contents of the conversation were, but to be honest, if I'm burning bridges, I'm burning bridges with hindsight of how they respected us and stuff. I really don't care now. They basically said, like, we've got interest from external sources to invest. We've got someone lined up already to invest. However, we need all our teams to be at the top end of the UK scene, right? So we said, yeah, that's fair enough. They went, we're at risk of not qualifying because you guys aren't in it. Fair enough. They originally set us the task of qualifying, which in realistic terms is quite viable, right? And then they changed it to, no, we want a top 2 UK team. And I went, well, I'm not going to be, I'm not naive and I'm not ignorant enough to know, yeah, we can be a top 2 UK team. Just give us a chance. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to do that. And they went, okay, well, we'll look at our options. Are you guys okay with staying with us while we look at those options? I sat and I thought, no. Do you know what I mean?
But it's not like, I mean, I guess we touched on it a little bit in terms of the player side of it as well, right? In that kind of same example, like, if you know you're going to be like a second option essentially and that sort of thing, like, you're not really going to take it, are you? Like,
and we sat there and we were like, and they had one member of their management, I'm not going to say his name, he's like, in the WhatsApp, he was like, yeah, if we were in a different position, or if we had it how we wanted to have it, we would definitely keep you guys. And I'm sat there thinking, but you can keep it. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're the ones making this decision.
It's kind of like just an excuse to kind of send you on your merry way, sort of thing.
And I was so confused, and I tried explaining it to the rest of my guys what the situation was, and it makes me seem like a liar. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're going, well, they couldn't have said that, and I'm like, well, they did. Like, they basically said, if we can't find someone, we'll happily keep you guys. It got this bad. They asked me in the exact same Skype call, oh yeah, what do you think of Smooya, and do you think he could make a good team? I'm like,
you shouldn't really be going to the guy you're about to kick from your team to pick up a new one, but yeah, like, that's just my 2 cents.
But it's like, how many kick to the teeth do you want to give us? Like, and at that point we were like, yeah, we're going to leave. And then they gave us, we initially agreed out of respect. We agreed to leave earlier than they wanted to, because UK Masters announced their dates.
Okay.
So initially we were meant to leave in the new year, but we left before Christmas. So I went away for 11 days. I didn't realistically want to leave, then 11 days not be able to have contact with any organisations that approached us. So I said, can we wait 11 days or whatever? And they were like, yeah, that's fine. And basically they said indirectly, like, oh, these are the UK Master days, like, shoving it in my face kind of thing. We're running short on time. And I was like, yeah, okay, well, we'll leave then. you guys can then get the team that you need to get. And we tried to keep it. You didn't see anything on social media from us.
Yeah,
None
no,
of
I
us
was gonna
came
say
out and
I
said,
don't remember seeing much stuff at all like on that whole topic, but yeah.
and then so we tried to keep it as quiet as we was, and then it just left a really bitter taste in our mouth. I mean, I spoke to Joel, the owner at Epic. What was the Epic that just went?
Oh, what, the
When they
Epic
sent that next
endpoint
team?
mix? Yeah. So it would have
Yeah,
been
he
Epic
was
20.
there,
Yeah.
and I kind of wanted to give him a piece of my mind, but then I kind of thought it's gone now. It's over and done with. Do you know what I mean? Like, if people ask me questions about what happened, I'm not gonna lie. I'll be upfront about like this. Like, you've asked me, or I kind of proactively
Sure.
wanted to answer it. But like, I'm not gonna go out my way and say what happened. But if people ask me questions, I'm not gonna cover up for them. Do you know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah, no,
don't burn
I
anything.
respect it. Like at the end of the day, I mean, the point that I'd make on it as a whole is that from Excel's standpoint, like I get it, right? Like every org that's ever had like an influctuation of money that's come in, like from investors or from whoever the fuck, like the amount of money that comes in, it does then change your game plan of the way that you assess the teams and everything you have. I don't think anyone's got a problem with that, but obviously the way
We
that
had
you then, yeah, the way that you have.
Oh yeah, I have respect for him.
But I mean, I guess it's maybe the same in every team that sometimes like that one team, whatever, like communication somehow doesn't quite go the way that it's ever intended, and things like this happen. But either way, they shouldn't happen in the way that it did. So it wasn't exactly a fantastic scenario for yourselves, I guess, to deal with that. But then obviously this is where it gets a bit weird for you guys still, doesn't it?
Jesus.
You've been on a rocky road, so I'm not gonna lie, lad. So I mean, like team wise, obviously after that XL you went to Xenex, and it was a very short stay in Xenex. I mean, they just got rid of the Shaney Pickles dances,
Yep.
JT Peggy lineup had split, which I mean everyone knew that they were going to split anyway before that I-59 I think it was. Um, just due to like time commitments and everything. So how did the initial like part of playing under Xenex come around, and then obviously touch on why it was a short stay, so to speak?
So after Excel, we basically we just kind of bided our time because we had issues with our rosters as well.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, our fifth just every time we picked up a fifth, there would be an issue. Like
It,
you would have a honeymoon period, and then there would just be something that just hit the fan,
yeah.
and you just kind of sat there. And we were like, okay, we need an organization where the management know the UK scene,
Sure.
right? They know the expectations, they know the kind of the hierarchy of it, they know the inner workings, right? So we had conversations with the organizations that had offered us a lot more than Xenix were going to give us. Like I'm talking full funding,
Sure.
like the whole works. But it didn't sit well with us to just join an organization, use them for an event, and then go. I've never been like that. You can ask any organization that I've spoken to, application wise, I've never given the vibe of, send us to one LAN and we'll just go to the next sucker that's going to do it for us again.
Yeah, a lot of UK
So,
teams have that mentality, but yeah.
uh, so when we held off because we didn't know what to do. At first, Xenix wasn't even an option because initially we thought we heard that Shiki was going to make a new team with possibly Shaney and who later became the Infused guys. So we just assumed Shiki's always been in Xenix. If he's gone to an organization, they're probably going to join them if Xenix need a team. So we held off. Then someone spoke to Shaney, or I spoke to Shaney, and Shaney was like, well, fuck knows what I'm doing with the team. Nothing's happening anytime soon. So we just by the off chance spoke to Gizmo, like,
Yeah.
what are you doing for a team? And he was like, nothing. So we sat down, had a conversation with him on TeamSpeak, with him and Reese, the management. And we basically said, okay, we'll join you for nothing. Right, again, nothing. We joined them for nothing. They said to us, we don't have the money at the moment because Gizmo had just invested in Gamers Apparel. Like he wanted to upgrade that franchise. Fair enough. Don't have any issues with that. But to play for Xenix with a history like that, and he's, the option of, incentives down the line, again, because we had a rocky history in the last like 3-4 months leading up to it, it would be unfair again to demand funding. Do you know what I mean? Like, people go, oh, you're only saying this. No, I'm not a retard. Like, I know how to deal with organizations, long term.
Yeah.
And so we joined them, stayed under them. Again, had roster issues. Crizzy, Jesus Christ. Okay, so Crizzy had his PC confiscated from him because he bunked school, right?
Nice.
But his dad went, "Yeah, I don't know when I'm giving it back." So we're sat there, like ESEA season,
It's
UK
not ideal, is it?
Masters. We're just sat there like, Crizzy. So when are you coming back, dude? Don't know. Any ETA? Don't know. Like, well, okay.
We're gonna have
We
to
have to
make a
kick you.
change, buddy.
Yeah, so we ended up removing him, and I think this was the trigger point for Xenex. Well, their supposed trigger point.
Okay.
They basically came to, or Reese came to, because I want to put this out there. Gizmo had no involvement to how I know this went down.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, he didn't speak to us. He didn't tell Reese to do this. So I can't say anything bad about Gizmo. I just want to put it out there because I don't want people to think, Gizmo did anything wrong by us. As far as I'm aware, no, he didn't. Reese basically came to us on a Saturday. So this happened over a weekend. He came to us and said, we're struggling as an organization. We need to restructure, blah, blah, blah. UK CSGO with the lack of money doesn't seem like a viable option. Cool, fair enough. It seems like a genuine reason, right? Didn't think anything of it. Left it for a couple
Then
of days.
like 2 to 3 days later, or however long it was.
So then I get someone come to me on the Monday and go, "You guys, you do realize you've been ratted, right?" And I thought, here we fucking go again. Right, and I sat there and I just thought, okay, I'm gonna go ask. And I went and spoke to the scum guys, right? But do you know what? I did it in a really sly way. I went, and sorry, Duck, I don't mean to misplace your trust, but I basically said to him, "Congratulations on being picked up."
Yeah.
Right? Didn't say anything. And he went, "Thanks." I was like, "Well, that's all I need." So I went back to Xenix and basically Reese refused to talk to me on Steam. He basically wanted me to come on TeamSpeak. And he basically tried to flog it as, they offer different exposure avenues. They want to go to Copenhagen because Gizmo made a tweet about sending a team to Copenhagen was cheaper, right?
Yeah.
And then I thought, so this is 1+1, kind of stuff. And then I was like, dude, why didn't you just tell us you had a conversation with them on the Friday? So Reese come to me on the Saturday. They had the conversation on the Friday. So he gave me some shit excuse on the Saturday. And then I've had to go to him on the Monday and say, why are you lying for? Do you know what I mean? So then we instantly leave because I can't be asked with that. We're not tied down by anything. Within a couple of hours, Scum are announced. So I'm sat there like, okay. And I understand that our results weren't the best because we hadn't qualified for UK Master. Xenex have always had UK Master representation. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if that's what they wanted, that's what they wanted. But all you have to do, please, organizations, just go to your players and tell them how it is. It doesn't matter how bad it comes across. As long as you're doing everything in line, then it's not going to come across as
Yeah, I mean, look, you know what? Like the one thing that I will kind of add on this, just from like to kind of throw an org perspective in there, is that for me, like it's difficult in a way, like like from a like UFrag CS history, like especially with like the Adam 2-year period, like we were probably the most honest people you're going to find out of any organization and team that throughout that period, in terms of I'd always say it how it is, he'd always say how it is, and we both respected that to the point it kind of always went well. Now I will say that there's been certain scenarios with other teams in other games that we've had that relationship wasn't the same way as what it was in that kind of scenario, and it is difficult to try and say certain things, but at the same point I'll always say that I've always been like, whatever the situation is, I've declared that as what is like the reason behind it, sort of thing. So I don't, I mean, I've heard fucking horror stories from like people about like certain ways that organizations have done things, and I mean, don't get me wrong, it works both ways. Like players are as shady as what organizations are in a lot of scenarios, right? So it does work both ways, but at the same point, like to me, I just find it interesting in terms of like, there's so many orgs that have teams that don't make the teams feel like they're a part of the org in a way, so it doesn't make you feel valued in any way, shape or form, which is kind of why the team then maybe looks to always like another avenue to go elsewhere, sort of thing, because they just don't feel appreciated in any way, shape or form from that org that they're playing under. And I mean, when was it that you actually left Xenex? Like
end of March. So we were with them 2 months. Start of February, end of March.
Okay, because yeah, I think I remember like a point of period of when they were obviously Xenex were looking for a kind of new team to an extent, and then they picked up Scum. I don't think it was 100% like definitive that they were picking up Scum at that point, just because of from like I just through a few conversations that I had with people at Xenex in terms of like potential available teams and things like that. So it's a bit of a weird one to see how it goes down. But either way, I think yeah, it's definitely. I don't see what the, especially because most UKCS players talk to each other, right, in a way. So
Yeah.
like they're gonna find that sort of information out if that is the way that it's gone down. So it just seems a very stupid decision to
I
make in that
mean,
regard.
it was that bad that I had to give certain. Actually, I'll just say it. Fuck it. I gave people like Cow, Blanks, Gumpster. I gave them the logs, the Steam conversations that I had with Reese,
Yeah.
because I didn't want it to start appearing that we were literally like making stories up on the spot. Do you know what I mean? Like they had. I gave them the logs before they made the uh, article about
Yeah.
us being released and such, because I didn't want us to get released and then people look at it and go, "Oh, here we go again. They've just left an org. Oh, they're saying they've been screwed over." Do you know what I mean? And it was just like I shouldn't be having to like, you know, copy conversations to save my own ass because organisations can't be asked to just be honest. Like it's
I mean,
to me, it's sad. It's
as you've said it, and like I do like Xenix, and I love Jamie. He is a very very sound guy. But like you kind of touched on the XL one, I've just gone on the Xenix website, and their team wise, they've still got you lot down as their lineup on their website. Which bear in mind, their team's just gone to an event. Like you would have thought that would have maybe been updated. Well, that team left as well, haven't they? Since so obviously, yeah. So
yeah.
and they've still so things like that definitely do need a website maintenance is something that
Is,
definitely needs
is
to
this
be
where I can say
improved on.
Xenix, if you want us back, we're here.
That'd be a fucking turn of events. Fuck you, Blanks. He's leaving already. But yeah, so I mean, you've definitely had some weird situations, I guess, with organisations in the past. But I mean, obviously, so that's where we said about in terms of going full circle and you're kind of back playing under Rasta again. I mean, from what you said to me with kind of the way that current lineup is and the way that Rasta operates, I mean, what's the lineup at the moment? It's still you, Ghost, Coral,
Coral, SDK,
SDK.
and Whisk.
Oh, fair enough. Is it something that you kind of like you said to me in terms of you've all had a bit of like in real life commitments and things like that, which maybe means that the team hasn't been like practicing as much as you'd like it to and things like that. But is that kind of the way that it is with that lineup in terms of people just accept that it's kind of everyone's got their own shit going on, or is it people still do really want to try and like you know what I mean perform and play at like the higher level sort of thing?
I think when we were in so after Epic, when we removed Taylor, we had Calvin in the team, or Fakes, whatever you know him as.
Yeah.
He's the one that we just replaced for Whisk. We kind of just accepted that we would miss out on certain qualifiers because we had been there for so long together as a unit, like us four. We kind of accepted, okay, if Ghost works late this day or Calvin works late this day, we'll miss this qualifier. No one kicked up a fuss. Do you know what I mean? Like we kind of accepted what it was. We were a competent team. We could go to events. We could do well, but if we miss out on a qualifier, it's not the be all and end all. I'm not going to kick someone that I get along with very well, does a lot for the team, for the sake of a qualifier. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. Like, it sounds stupid. People go, but all the money that's involved, like, yeah, but I don't care. Right? I don't care. So it kind of went that way up until the new year. Then we picked up Claw. He quit. Crizzy we had to remove because of his PC. Then Calvin we bring back as a replacement for Claw. He's now got a new job, or not a new job. He's a new role in his job. So it means like he's working like 4 days a week late. And as much as I wanted to keep him, and we gave him the offer, he
Yeah,
just
you can't.
yeah. So but we were a team that we knew our limitations with time. We weren't one of those that you know couldn't be asked to improve or didn't want to improve. It's just we knew that we in terms of efficiency, we are very good with efficiency, with how little time we have and what we do to improve.
Yeah.
What we've done is we've kind of picked up a player now, Whisk, who has shitload of available time. The kid just plays Counter Strike. Whisk, what have you done today? Played PUBG and Counter Strike. Okay, so we're in the process of allowing ourselves to have more time, and hopefully it will start to show, because we kind of stagnated, and obviously that showed in results. We peaked at 56 for Epic. didn't really do much else for the rest of the year. Do you know what I mean? Like, people looking outwards, they go, well, they haven't done anything. Like, they're a nobody team now. But we were content with the time that we have, but we want to show that we can
compete when it comes to it, sort
yeah.
of thing.
So we've kind of gone down the road of just picking up people who have more available time, not necessarily bigger reputation, just people that have more time.
So what's like the overall plans for the lineup then going forward? Is it like, I mean, I was going to kind of touch on this a little bit in terms of like the personal stuff as well, in terms of say like age wise, and this is before you start getting triggered calling you an old man, because I'm 25 in like 2 weeks, so I can't say shit. But like, is it kind of got to a point maybe where, because of the age that you are, like, I mean, you look at say like all the pros within the scene. I mean, CS is probably one of the few games actually where people can compete at a higher age. Obviously, teams like VP being a prime example of that. More so in games like League of Legends, when the age of the people is more on the younger side. But do you, like, because obviously naturally as you're going to get older, more in real life stuff like commitments wise are going to become more prominent. So have you found that that's maybe the case, and it's kind of the amount, like, ambition wise, I guess when you're like 19, 20 and you're trying to break into the Counter-Strike scene, you kind of still think, oh, you know what, I can smash it, I can go to these events, I can win it, sort of thing. But maybe as you get slightly older, then it's kind of like, don't have the time to put in as much as what these kids do when they're coming on the block like a Whisk that's being able to play 24/7, you know what I mean? So has that kind of changed anything for you, sort of thing?
Not really. Like, I'm quite fortunate. My job, I finish at 2. So I start quite early I leave mine at 4, finish at 2. So I'm done in the early afternoons, come back, do whatever I need to do in the afternoon, then I prac and play.
Sure.
Financially, I'm quite comfortable because of my job. But I grafted for it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't something that just fell on my lap. So I'm taking advantage of the situation that I'm in environmentally to play the game. Do you know what I mean? If I wasn't in the position that I was in, I probably wouldn't be playing as much as I do. I also understand that I am an older player, so I invest a lot of my time, or available time team-wise, to the team. So what I mean by that is I don't sit there and I don't deathmatch for 4 hours a day. I just don't have the time to do it. But what I will do is I will go and watch 2, 3, 4 demos. I will sit there on a server with people, go over stuff. I'll do the donkey work, so to speak. I understand that. Like, I let Whisk go kill things if I do the donkey work. That's not to say I neglect my position as an actual player. But I understand that my commitments and my realistic improvement curve is not going to be as high as the rest of the players.
I think it's needed in a way, though, especially with those younger players that, especially UK-wise, seem to have a resistance to watching demos and things like that. They do just end up predominantly playing, and like practice-wise might not be the most efficient people. So having that more experienced person in yourself that can do that kind of the legwork of finding out that information and things like that to then pass it on probably works out for the best from their perspective as well, because then it means they're still getting that information, like, to an extent, as well as they're still being able to practice as much as possible, right?
I mean, it's sad. I don't want to kind of take anything away from Snods. I love him. Me and him speak quite a lot. But for him, like, you got to understand how this sounds so bad. When someone comes out and says, I watch 2 demos a night, and like, to the UK scene, it's mind-boggling. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh my God, someone watch demos, and you just think, that's the norm in any other scene.
Dude, you don't understand, man. Like, it's actually triggered me so much. And in fairness, I think like the ones that I've done with the casters in terms of Jackie and Flakes have like said the same thing in terms of like the amount of time and research they put into casting and progressing forward and everything like that. But like, between like player wise, I mean, Pickles to an extent fair enough as well, because I mean, he kind of like took more hours out of his job to practice CS and things like that. But Snods was the first person that's kind of gone into the full amount of detail, the way that he practices and things like that. And the amount of people that have genuinely come up to me and messaged me that have been like, yeah, I mean, it's been really good hearing it. I've learned a lot and things like that. And as much as I'm like, yeah, it's great in a way for them to finally realise that, and hopefully that can then improve them. But to me, it just seems so fucking ignorant that people like. What baffles me more of it, and this is why I class it as ignorance, is the fact of, because of so many of these players are still having the attitudes of like, oh, I'm going to make it, I'm one of the better players, blah blah blah. And it's like, if it's now just taking you that realization from one person's video that's just made it reasonably well in a short space of time, for you to realize that you have to watch demos and things like that, it fucking baffles me, dude. It genuinely does. Like, it seems just, I don't like, bear in mind the amount of content that's around like pro scenes now, and like, and the players and what they've kind of had to graft through in order to get it. And you hear about like pro teams like practice schedules and how many hours they put in and things like that. It just seems so ignorant to not think that you have to do that as well in order to progress. And Snod said the same thing, and he had certain people coming to him being like, you know what I mean, like, how do I get that opportunity that you've got and everything like that. And he's just said it simply in terms of, you're not doing this, that and that when you should be. And it just absolutely fucking triggers me. It really does.
I had a guy, I'm not going to name who, because again, I'm a good friend. He came to me the other day and went, so how do I watch a demo? And he's in a very good team. Like, how do I look what I need to improve on? Like, I'm sat there, I'm trying to write it out, right? And I'm just thinking to myself, how do you not know this? Like, anyone that knows me, like Ash from the Dog Gaming.
Yeah, no,
Guys,
fuck
anyway,
Ash, he's a noob.
Yeah, fuck Ash, yeah. Like, when he coached us briefly, it got to the point he was telling me to go to bed, because I would sit there and I'd watch demos. I'd watch demos. And I don't come out on Twitter and I don't go, I've watched 10 demos today. What have you done? But it wasn't until I watched Snod's video I realised how many people actually don't watch videos. I don't understand. Like, I'm not to say like people can, oh yeah, but you watch X amount of demos and you're still shit. Like, yeah, I'm still shit, but at least I know I'm shit. You're just ignorant to the fact that
Yeah.
you're not going to improve. I don't understand how you can want to aspire and have an ego or whatever, to improve, but you don't know the fundamentals. You don't know how to go watch a demo. You don't know how to prac efficiently. Now, pracking efficiently is completely different to watching demos, right? Now, I'm going to touch on this subject while we're here, may as well. Teams that just run around and they do strats, right? They go over on a server and they go learn a strat, right? They think, oh, we've learned this strat. We've done our work now. So they go into a game, they run a strat. They think, okay, it's not working. It's a shit strat. I'm going to change the strat. They don't take into account like all the variables that happen there. Like, so is the team doing something that's countering, or they, do you need to tweak anything, or is it just one thing that's, do you where I'm coming from here? Like,
yeah, I think like for me, the one thing that I've noticed in terms of the way that even when teams that do watch demos, and I said the same thing to Snods, is that they'll watch the demo and they'll kind of take a strat from it or something like that, but they don't know why they're doing said strat, right? Is they don't look at the definitive details in terms of, like, say, like, even if you're looking at like proper detailed of like understanding rotations and when to rotate and things like that, but even if you're doing like a dedicated strat and you're saying, okay, well, this person's gonna like molly here, someone's gonna smoke there, blah blah blah, like, they don't they'll just do it. They don't ask the questions as to why we're going to do that and think about what's happening from the other team's perspective of what they'd be doing at that point, right, to try and counter it. And that's where I think that, like, to me, I think I've said it the same with so many people. I think general aim-wise, I think UK players are great. I think actual aim-wise, like, there's a lot of potential in terms of what players have. In terms of understanding of the game is where I think a lot of players are very lackluster. And that's where I think the biggest problem comes into it. So, like, I mean, this is kind of where I guess where we could touch on the next point as well. But obviously, you've predominantly been an IGL, right? Near enough, like in all your teams. So you touched on it a little bit earlier in terms of like maybe the fragging ability wasn't as high, but I mean, it is a near enough universal trend in terms of IGLs not being the biggest fraggers because of the focus is on other things at the same time, and you don't have the free reign as much as what, say, like an entry fragger does. So would you say that parts of, like, since you have been IGLing, I mean, you must have encountered a lot of people that essentially don't practice in what you think is the right way. So how do you then have that conversation with players? How do you tell them, look, you should be doing this? Because bear in mind, a lot of UK players are very ego intensive. So, yeah, I mean, they don't necessarily like taking that sort of advice or suggestions from people, even if it is your own IGL.
You've got to break them down. It sounds silly, but you have to break them down. Like, players they join the team, and I think some of them I think we've been lucky with every player that we've picked up has an understanding that the environment they've come from is not the environment that they want to be in. So when they join us and I make my suggestions and I go, this is what I want you to start doing. Like with, for example, like I've told him now, you did this, but now you need to do this. You need to go watch these demos, this, learn these. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a completely different environment. And if the players want it, they'll go do it. That's as much as it is. Like I said to my team before, there is no way someone of my age should be more enthusiastic to improve at the game than someone who has the potential to go earn money from this game. Do you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
me,
sure.
realistically, it's not going to happen. Right? If we're being honest here, it's not going to happen. I play the game because I enjoy the game. I'm in a position to do it. But someone who's 15, 16, 17, if you go start playing the game efficiently, there's no reason why you can't. It doesn't matter what scene you're in, but you need to want it. There's one thing me telling you or someone telling you to do it to you wanting to do it yourself, being proactive. And it's just something that isn't there in the UK scene in general.
Yeah, I mean, I've literally we've probably touched on this topic in near enough every episode, I guess now, in terms of like what people say and what they do are two completely fucking different things in the UK CS scene, right? I mean, in fairness, it probably applies to a lot of UK esports, not just CS, from my experience. Anyway, there are certain games that are an exception, but yeah, like in terms of I don't understand the logic behind people in terms of every other avenue of life that you'd class as in real life world scenarios. Everyone knows that the only way you're really going to get somewhere is by fucking grinding it out and putting the hard work in. So I don't understand people's logic to think that UK Counter-Strike or Counter-Strike in general or becoming an esports star, whatever it necessarily is an exception to that ruling. Like I don't know where that whole attitude comes from to an extent. And to me, it's quite like not, I guess, disheartening in a way, because if you, especially when you see people putting in so many fucking hours into the game, and they're saying that they want to become this like the top UK player and then progress from that point onwards, but it's like you're not doing it in the right way, and anytime
No.
someone suggests something to do to that, you don't take it on board. You're the first person to just tell them to go like jog the fuck on and not pay any attention to it, and it's just kind of like, being honest, that is kind of one of the big reasons why I wanted to do these sort of videos, is so that it can speak to people like yourself, speak to people like Snods that have kind of been through certain situations, so people can understand it, hear it, and learn from it, right? That's genuinely one of the big reasons why I want to do this sort of stuff. But yeah, so I mean, IGLing as a whole, would you say that, like, do you enjoy IGLing? Do you enjoy having that kind of that leadership role as much as the stresses that come with it? But
Yes, to the point that
when it works, right? Like,
yeah, no. To be fair, I enjoy it. As strenuous and stressful as it gets, like I've had nights where I just think this is fucking awful. Like anyone, everyone has a bad thing. But then I've sat there and I've gone, no, I enjoy it. Like it's a weird catch-22. Like you sacrifice a lot as an individual for the rest of the team, and you get the gratification out of that. So when you start seeing the results, when you start seeing people learn, like, or players going on to better things, it sounds silly. Like when players like Jenko, I'm trying to think of Stanley.
Stanley, yeah.
You know, when you go to see them do better things, right? And I'm not saying like I'm going to take like, oh, I made them the player, but like you had a part in it. Do you know what I mean? Like you helped them. Like Jenko, to be fair to Jenko, every time he goes to a LAN event, he comes over and he speaks to me, and he said to me, like, he probably has shit talked to me, and I know you have, Jenko, so don't lie. He says to me, without you, I wouldn't be playing for X team because people wouldn't have known me if you hadn't given me chances, and that's where the gratification comes from for me. But an IGL in the UK scene, you just get no respect at all. I mean, if I go on retakes, I never ever go on retakes. I go on there like, as a laugh, you just think, what else have I got better to do with my life this evening? Fuck it, let's go on retakes. And the first thing they chuck at you is your ESEA stats, and you just think, oh, here we go. And I just let them crack on now.
Yeah. Retakes is a very special place for special people.
In general, though, UK players only look at stats.
They do, and I think, I mean, I wouldn't, at this point, I wouldn't even dedicate it to just UK players. I think the various interviews that I've seen, say like a Thorin do with NA players, and a lot of them tend to say the same thing in terms of, like, especially IGLs as well, is that, like, and I would say probably UK is in a similar scenario in terms of that there's only like maybe 2-3 like high tier IGLs that you could necessarily say there is, and like people's like I would say there's so much more chances of you being like someone being successful if you're to IGL and just try and smash it out, because of the lack of IGLs that essentially that are there, right? That do it in a certain way. Now, I'm not saying it's an easy job that someone can just go and do in a click of a finger. You're a great IGL, because it takes a lot of fucking work. It really does. But yeah, like I think it does apply to a lot of national scenes, in fairness, where people are just very stats whore. Like, no matter what, even in a game, like they'll, even if it's the IGL or someone else and they haven't got as many frags as what the top person has, and that'll be the first thing that they jump on the gun, right? And they're not taking into account all the other things behind it. And you're going to apply this to, I mean, how many times have we seen in recent, like, look at Godsent as what probably one of the best examples of this at the moment, even though they're probably playing they are playing dog shit at the moment, in fairness, but they are that sort of team that Pronax is never been known as a prolific fragger, right? Like, he's always been that because of he's the IGL, the strat god, the way that he approaches things. But there's been so much shade always thrown around at IGLs because of the lack of stats that they generally put up on a consistent basis. So would you say that that is just predominantly because of the amount of focus you put into other sides of the game, more so than practicing, more so than DMing? Because obviously, even in the game, you're trying to control the game, right? So your focus isn't always dedicated on playing. So is that difficult?
It is, when sometimes, like, don't get me wrong, if you're an IGL, that doesn't excuse you from getting frags, right? What I mean by that, though, is you're not responsible for getting 20 frags a game. You're responsible for getting your frags that you need to get. So your 10 frags. If they're 10 frags, if they're vital frags, you've done your job, right? But where the issues then come in are, for me, I dislike sometimes feeling like I've let the team down. So whether or not you lose that because you've called a shit strat or the wrong strat, I like to think, though, as well, if I was to leave my guys, that I would get a fairly decent offer. I mean, I've had teams contact me before, but because of my relationship with the current team that I have no reason to. I have contemplated it. Like, the guys know that I've had a couple of offers where I've thought, I'll look into it. And I think the thing that's going to let certain IGLs down in the UK scene, like those that are lesser known, because they don't, people are going to come up with the old cliche of saying, if you're good enough, you'll make chances, right? But if you're good enough IGL, people won't give you chances because, again, you haven't got those standout stats, right? So if you go to someone like, I don't know, say for example, like Imi quit Endpoint tomorrow for whatever reason, he just quit, yeah. And they're gonna go look for an IGL. They're just gonna go around the same cycle of players. They're not gonna go think, okay, who's IGL to the teams? They're not gonna do it, are they? They're not gonna give people chances because they think, well, who actually is there in the UK scene for
I think,
IGLs?
yeah, to an extent, I think the problem is that because of it is an incredibly limited pool of people that kind of, I mean, I guess it's different. I'd say with the endpoint scenario, because they are one of the few salary teams that they kind of, the pressure of picking up that someone that they have to pick up, there isn't much to choose from in that scenario, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Bad example.
Yeah, you've literally got, say, like a Nil from FM. You've got a Sheiky. You know what I mean? They're people that you're not necessarily going to be able to get in the first place either. So, yeah, it's definitely a difficult one. I do think IGLing is something that's very underappreciated by a lot of people for the amount of work that the good IGLs generally do. But we'll move on to one of the points that I did actually want to touch on, and I've done it with everyone else in terms of like the personal life stuff to an extent. So, for you, has there been anything that's like real life scenario that's kind of, or responsibilities that have impacted you, the way that you play CS, or like from like how's the social side of things gone for you? Because everyone's kind of had different opinions. Some people have been like, what, the social side's been quite difficult to balance in terms of they want to be that, like, e.g. that pommy lad that wants to kind of go out every weekend, get smashed in that sort of scenario. Some people have like a Flakes type person, or even a Jackie type person, where they've been like the vast majority of their friend groups now are literally just people they've met through gaming and met through esports. So how's the kind of that side of things been for you in gaming since you got involved in it?
I'm quite fortunate that the group that I have outside of gaming know that I play games. So it's not like it's a hidden agenda. However, when I first started playing, so just to put some context into it, I didn't have a PC till I was 20. Now, you tell a lot of people that nowadays, and they go, "What? Someone doesn't have a PC when they're..." I didn't have a PC till I was 20. So for me, I can't say for those younger ages because I never had that issue.
Yeah.
So like 15, 16, 17, 18, I never had the issue. But I could imagine how it would be difficult, especially from a peer pressure perspective. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can imagine people going, "Oh, you haven't come out this Friday," and then it starts to grade. So for people like Pommy and those that are younger, I think you have to find a balance. I think teams need to also understand as well, if you're picking up said players, that like if you have a team of like 18-year-olds, right, then you're going to expect like one person's going to want to go out maybe once a week, twice a week, right? But that's the risk that you're taking. I think for me though, at my age now, it's a little bit different. Like, I finish my work, I see my girlfriend on the weekends. We don't play Friday, Saturdays. I tell the guys, like, if you want to go out and do whatever you want to do, do it Friday, Saturday. Don't care. Do you know what I mean? But for me, it's a completely, it's
Not
no
not
additional
really had
pressure.
that. Yeah.
No, it's again because I can't relate to it because I never had a PC.
So I
So
mean, would you say it's like from a different perspective then? I guess there's because even from my perspective, like I still kind of feel a bit weird about it in terms of certain people that I'll explain to that I'm trying to do this, that, and the other all in gaming, and like they look at me and like, shit, dude, you're like 25 now. What the fuck are you doing? You know what I mean? It's kind of like to an extent they don't necessarily understand it and anything like that, but I also kind of feel like, say, like look at a Scoots in CS and how old Scoots is, like to deal with certain people, like I don't mean that in a bad way, but obviously like for people that don't understand the world of gaming and esports and see someone that's like, you know what I mean, in his 50s and his 60s or anything like that, that's still even like a red eye that's like been involved for a long period of time, and they look at you and they're just kind of like, well, why are you still involved at gaming at that sort of age, sort of thing? Like, have you had anything like that as you've got older, or anything that like certain people like schneid comments don't understand, sort of
uh
thing?
yeah, definitely. I think it's odd. I actually get more from online than I do in
In real
person. So
life, yeah.
obviously, like, yeah. So like, I think because obviously the people around me are my age, I think the maturity is a little bit more there. So they understand, like, they might not necessarily understand my decision to pursue gaming as a
Sure.
hobby or whatever, but at least they respect it.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like,
they don't
it,
shit
it's
talk it, like.
yeah, and like they might like think to myself, he's not come out again, but whatever. If that's making him happy. Whereas I think the younger ones, they just they don't understand that. Do you know, like I actually have more reason to sit at home. I'm old. Do you know what I mean? Like, what am I gonna do? I'm not gonna go out like, yeah, I'll go out on a Friday, Saturday, but I'm not gonna go to like a freshers week. Do you know what I mean? Like that's like I have
Even
more.
for me, I've noticed like beforehand of like, especially being at uni and things like that, where I'd go out literally every single night, clubbing, 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 clubbing. Now I'm just kind of like, if you're going to a decent bar or something, like sure
Yeah.
I'll be there, or a pub, but like I can't be asked unless it's like a specific event person performing things like that. I can't be asked with it, dude. I just don't have the fucking effort for it. But like there's still, I guess, it's weird, like ends of the spectrum, man. Like I think younger players, I think from an outside perspective, obviously it's a lot more tolerable when younger players, like when you're this like 16, 17, 18, 19, and you're playing games, like even if you are doing it competitively, but people expect you maybe to be playing games at that sort of age, right? So when you start to get older and like, especially, so I say, like even like VP, that being that example that we mentioned earlier, to people that don't know who VP were and were to meet them in the street and have a like casual conversation with them and find out that they're all like 30 or playing games competitively, they're probably going to be like, what the fuck are you doing, sort of thing, right? Until you hear about the mass amounts and everything like
And the
that.
money they're making.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
then they're going to be like, shit, how the fuck do I get into that sort of thing? But yeah, the social sides are definitely weird, but at the same point, I guess it's maybe because of having that scenario where you didn't get a PC till 20. Because I mean, I had a PC when I was young, and I was lucky. I still remained a very like reasonably social person. But I know a lot of people that as soon as they've got that PC, they've kind of just blocked out a lot of social sides of things, and they've just stayed that online type person, right?
Mm.
So, my good friend, we will start to touch on the general UK scene questions, the fun part of the segment, I guess,
Okay.
where shit talking happens 90% of the time. So, trying to think of the best way to start it. But as it currently stands, I'll start off with a lenient question. If you had to choose 3 teams in the current UK scene that you'd put in like a top 3 for CS teams, who would it be and why?
In order.
Yeah, if you can.
Okay. FM. Endpoint. And third.
Third one's a difficult one to an extent.
I'm trying to think. Uh,
But I don't
on
like. Here, go
on paper, the XL guys should do fine, but it's whether or not they're just there for the Gfinity series or not. But then again, the rest is just like random hat. Whoever turns up on the day.
Yeah, it's difficult to judge, man. 'Cause I think you've got like teams maybe that like the Radix lineup, the Infused lineup, or the X-Infused lineup. Sorry, so the Sheiky, Shaney, Pickles, Limgy sort of thing. They're all teams that you can potentially see breaking into that top three, but the consistency is not there. Like the Sheiky, Shaney, like then like they're literally a team that could place second at one event and place 9th to 12th at the next event, right? Like it does literally just vary. The XLs to the X Imperial lineup, although they did make one change because they brought Luzzer in, didn't they? In theory, I think that lineup will actually stick. I mean, they were playing under Imperial for a decent amount of time, so I mean, hopefully that does. And Jacobs, Windansky, Boaster, Luzzer, Connor, they're all very good players. So that could happen. But yeah, I mean, the third spot is I probably would have to give it to that XL lineup at the moment. I don't think the likes of CX is I want CX to do real well. I genuinely do, but it's just the consistency of them again. Consistency is just going to be the key word, I guess, that we're going to put to most teams in and around that area. Dog, it would be fantastic if Dog can somehow break into that top three and become consistent. I think everyone would love that.
Fuck Ash and fuck Yoshi.
Yeah, actually, no, fuck Yoshi especially. The kid just trolls me like at all given points, but still. But yeah, no, it makes sense. I think at the FMM point, like, are the only two really at the moment that you'd say are kind of leading away with it. And hopefully, in fairness, both of them can kind of continue on that trend and kind of be the saviours of the scene in a way, right? But, however, there's been a fair amount of discussion, I guess, of late in terms of the tournament formats in the UK. So when I had a Phoenix UK show like a week or two ago, and it was like Gumpstar. We had Adam.
I watched it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, kind sir. It was probably dog shit, but still. But yeah, obviously the point of the conversation was in terms of tournament formats. Now, I think the wonderful Adam XOXO suggestion was to do some like form of UK Masters like top 8 essentially. Essentially the top 8 that kind of then go throughout groups, so they don't participate in groups sort of thing, and then they just skip it out, and it makes it a lot easier for them. Means less stress. Means they don't play shitty tier 7 UK teams and things like that. But obviously, one of the big issues with that is consistency in lineups, because obviously unless you keep that core 3 out of 5, it's really difficult to kind of maintain that sort of thing. As well as how do you judge, like, if you were to do it off of the 8 UK Masters teams that were in it, and then to go into an I series, I guess that could kind of work, but I'm not too sure how many people would, like, when we discussed it in a way, quite a few people were on the edge about it. My suggestion was GSL. Like, I think that would probably be the good way of doing it, but at the same point, again, in every scenario, it falls down on if seedings are done in a good way. Now, yeah, but that, like, the problem is, and I do genuinely feel sorry for any fucker, like, well, I guess it's mostly Jazz at these events now, but like that has to do seedings, because there's genuinely no real clear-cut way of doing it for UK teams, right? So yeah, I mean, by all means, give me a verdict on seedings and tournament formats, but yeah, so, go.
If we're going to talk about format, while I understand, like, when I listen to Adam explain his, the issue I have with that is there might be teams that don't participate in UK Masters because they can't. You know, a time issue. Then you're going to get one team that cries and goes, "Oh, but they should be a top 8 team," and it's just like, it's going to be more hassle than it's worth. Do you know what I mean? I think the best way to do it, stick to your simple 16 seeds, right? And I'm sorry, admins, I'm going to say this, is I actually heard this at, was it 56 or one of the other lands after? I heard from someone, one of the admins said, like, when they did something stupid, like, I think it was 59 actually, when they did like 24 seeds, they did like a stupid amount. Yeah. Right, they went, "Oh, there's too many teams that we think could be seeded." No, stop trying to be friendly to every team. If you think it doesn't deserve a seed, don't give them a seed. It's as simple as that. Do 16 seeds, 32 seeds, whatever. If you want to do a 32 team bracket, do 32 seeds. If you want to do 16, do 16. But I think how you have to do it is, I think you have to make a B tournament worthwhile, right? So, I mean, like, if teams drop down to the inters, if you turn around and said you get absolutely nothing, no one's going to try, right?
Yeah, but I mean, you still get free tickets for the next event, right? I'm not saying it's the most glorified.
You don't now, do you?
I series, I'm pretty sure, unless they fucking changed it. Which, if they've changed that, then fair enough. I get the point. If there's still the tickets there, I mean, it's half and half. I really don't know if they did change that. 'Cause I mean, I
Pretty
didn't
sure.
go to last I series, so I
I
done it.
remember Descend kicking up a fuss that they didn't get anything or something, that they weren't going to get anything, which
Mind
negates the
blown.
fact of a B tournament. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, no, I fully agree in that. There does need to be something there at least to kind of play for. But I mean, the difficulties of it is, I guess, is in terms of like, once obviously groups are done, even like in whatever format you're gonna do that in, whether it be GSL or whatever the fuck, like the problem is where people start getting pissy is once it progresses to that into the knockout rounds, in terms of like, should it be single elim, should it be double elim? Now, even if it is double elim, they shouldn't be best of threes in both, like say like in the first knockouts or the first round of knockouts in the upper bracket, and then first rounds of lower bracket are both best of threes, and like that to me just longs it out. Like, I think if you are going to do double elimination, then lower bracket should just be a best of one
best
until
of
it
one.
reaches to a certain point, because I think that is one of the biggest ones that drags it out quite a lot when you get to that stage. But you know what? I think so many people are different formats on it. I don't mind the current formats that would say like, well, the last format I60 wasn't actually too bad. I don't think.
Uh,
The problem is, well, in theory, obviously the way it was
yeah.
executed, and again, I'm not going to say like, in terms of schedules and delays, like, I do think the vast majority of the time that is down to players more so than admins controlling it, because I mean, especially when you've only got 1-2 admins, I do think that they should have more. But when you've only got, it is very difficult to ensure that every fucking team manages to get on time. You know what I mean, be sitting at their desk starting the game at a given point. And like the other big thing that triggers me is also, is just teams do take the piss in terms of like,
Yeah.
at half time in one map they go take a 5-10 minute break after, you know what I mean, and so many things like that happen, and then you know what I mean, it's 2 hours later by that point when the game could have been finished. But in terms of seedings, like, how do you think that, like, what is the best way to then judge the seedings? So like the I60 seedings that were done, I personally didn't think that they were that bad. In terms of, people did moan about them, but my big point on it was that, I mean, all 16 teams that were seeded within that top 16 did finish in the top 16. There was variation in it, but like we've just kind of been discussing those sort of like other teams, is a lot of them can beat anyone on their day. So like one team, and you can see that by results in certain teams that were seeded like 3rd, 4th, finished 9th to 12th and things like that. So it's so difficult to judge when there's no clear cut like ranking systems like a HLTV has of professional teams. You know what I mean?
I think how they did the I60 seeds, fair play to them. They actually did them pretty spot on, and I don't understand people that go on Twitter and go, "Oh, we should be 9 and we're 12." Like, how I've always understood seeds, and I think this is how they did them in Source. I could be wrong. And early CS:GO is top 8 seeded in best order you can give them, right? That makes sense.
Yeah.
Then you do them in blocks. So 9th to 12th and 13th to 16th in blocks. If it was single elimination, it would make sense that you would have to do them in order, right? Because obviously how you do
you
it.
have to.
But if it's single elim, if it's double elim, right, it shouldn't make a difference because you're playing in blocks of 4. Yeah. So like 13th to 16th should be playing 9th to 12th teams. Does that make sense? Yeah. So when you drop down. And then so that's how you should be playing it. So it doesn't make a difference. So like if you're 9th and you're 12th seed, why are you kicking them off us? If you got finished 9th to 12th, you still got to beat 13th to 16th seed teams. So it's not going to make a difference.
But I mean, again, the big reason that I generally find, and this is why I find it the most amusing, is that, yeah, I mean, those seeds will happen, and they'll only ever fucking mention it once they lost the game. In like 90% of the time, right? They won't say it before that seeding's happened and the team that they fight, like they play against, then they'll just be like, oh yeah, fair enough, it happens. They might not be too happy about it because they might know it's a challenging game, but fuck it, they'll get on with it. As soon as they lose the game, straight away, social media, admins are shit, seedings are shit, and it's just kind of like, come on, dude, like you should. I know a lot of people get pissed off when well, if you're good enough, you should win the games. And I know that's not as much as that's the base logic of it. It's not as clear cut as that, I guess. But at the same point, especially when there are teams that are in and around your area, like, the fact of the matter is you should be beating them if you want to get to that stage anyway, right?
Yeah.
Like,
it's also funny. They'll be the same teams that they beat like I don't know. We use IGI as an example here, right? They chucked up some shit on Twitter about how they should have been seeded higher.
oh yeah,
They finished.
that,
They finished 30th to 16th, right? But they come up with the crap of, yeah, but we beat Heinz in a best of 1. Like, yeah, but what about all the noob teams you've lost to in UK Open? Do you know what I mean? Like,
it is.
You can't have it both ways. You can't brag about one result and then deflect another. Like, just accept your seed and get on with it. As far
Again,
as
I think people are very quick to do that and say like not consider both sides, like that IGI scenario. I think there was a lot of scenarios that have been like that where they'd be like, oh, we've beat this team in a best of one, we beat this team in a scrim, knowing what UK mentalities are like, to be fair. But and then obviously again you look at other results and they've just been dogged on by certain teams that you've never heard of, right? So it's like, well, how do we justify that? I do think going forward that some, in an ideal world, some form of like ranking system can kind of come into play for UK teams at the very least. Whether you do base it upon just the prominent leagues of, say, like, look, here you go, here's ESEA, here's UK Masters, here's ESL. But then, I mean, the problem is even if you start doing that, then how do you then decide it for teams like Endpoint that are then going to play in international events? Like, I mean, I guess it depends if they're still wanting to participate in UK events at that point, right? If they're not and they're fully focusing on elsewhere, you can kind of still stick to that system. But then it kind of feels like it would penalise the teams that do try and go elsewhere to Europe. So it's like there's so many ifs and buts, and I think either way, for any bastard that does go through it and try and create this sort of system, like, not everyone's going to be happy in any way, shape, or form, right? Like, people are going to.
I think though, I think you have to do something. Something has to be done, because it's just the same crap every LAN. You just read about seeds, you read about format. The only thing I drastically don't like about the current format, and I'm sorry, John, when you come out and said this, like at I-59, it triggered me when he came out and said, "Oh yeah, we're going to try this experimental format," and I'm just thinking, no, please. Like, just come out and say you're trying this format. Don't say you're experimenting with a format with teams that have paid to go to the event, right? You're only asking for trouble.
As much as I mean, as much as I love John, I do kind of completely agree with that. It's like those are the sort of things that, fair enough, if you like, you maybe, I don't, you can't even justify putting it in like a UK Masters online qualifier, but I would rather have it in a UK Masters online qualifier than at the event where people have just paid fucking hundreds and hundreds of pounds to attend, and you could get dicked over because of your experimenting, right?
Yeah, and it's like that. It's that best of three that gets you into the Olymp. Like, what's that about? Please, if someone can actually logically break it down, right? The reason you have that for first playing third or whatever it is, or is it like second place third from a different? I don't know. I don't even know what it is, to be honest. Like, I saw it and I just like, yeah, it's a load of shit. Just scrap it. Saves you an hour. Saves you 2 hours if it's going to go to a best three, right? Then you can play those. You can play your upper bracket. Yeah, your best of three upper bracket in that slot, right? Saves you a couple of hours. But why are they doing it? It doesn't make any sense. You shouldn't have teams that are top in their groups having to play another best of three. That, say, for example, they just have an off game, right?
Yeah.
They're out. They're back into the inters, right? But the issue I had, right, before is if you finish 13th to 16th, so I-59, yeah?
Yeah.
So if you finish 13th to 16th, you could drop down to the inters anyway.
Yeah,
that doesn't make sense. There's no integrity. Like, it's just.
I think, I mean, I guess this is the point where, say, like, the difference between running single elim and double elim as well is in terms of if it is single elim and you're running. I mean, I've seen it before in various things, and it's like single elim and it's best of one, and that team does have an off game, they get knocked out, and like you said, they go into the fucking intermediate tournament sort of thing. That I think is bullshit. I think if you are running single elim tournaments, you need to run best of three as long as possible if you can, because of it's the only way to give people a fair chance and stop that one map wonder of a team coming out and screwing a team over. If double elim does come into it, then double elim should, until it gets to the later stages, be just best of ones, because of it just longs it out too much, and it's just way too much hassle to kind of maintain at that point. You know what I mean, at the end of the day, it's a fucking difficult job to please everyone. My big point I'd probably say on it is that I'd like to see more from the tournament organisers in terms of like just explaining, just in clarity. Because I mean, more so, I mean, especially in online qualifiers, like online qualifiers are generally a bit of a shit show, to be fair, in terms of like the clarity that comes from them. And I don't mean that to be like just kind of moaning at everyone, but I think everyone will kind of attest to qualifiers in terms of the information given is been quite poor. But yeah, in terms of when it is a like LAN events and things like that, I would like to see just someone maybe being a bit more proactive and just kind of, I mean, as much as people like John and everything, if you go over there and talk to them, they'll explain it to you directly and say it. But I think they, because of, UKCS people and they love looking at flaws and can't talk to people directly, then it would be nice if they made some form of more public like way of explaining why they've made a certain decision or something like that kind of concept. But yeah, I mean, I guess that there's still a long way to go, I guess, in terms
I
of
mean,
UK tournaments and
there's one
seedings.
format I liked when I went to Frag-O-Matic. How they did theirs was they had 32 teams go into what they deemed the elimination bracket, right? But how
Yeah.
they did it was first and second started in the upper bracket, right? So the upper bracket was best of threes throughout, yeah.
Yeah.
Third and fourth started in the lower bracket, was best of ones, right? If you dropped out in the first, I think it was 3 rounds of the lower bracket or 2 rounds, you go into the intermediate tournament, right?
Okay.
And the upper bracket was all best of 3. So you had the best of 3 running along the bottom bracket or whatever.
Yeah.
But how they ran it was so smooth. It was done within it was done by Saturday at about 11 p.m. Yeah, and the final was on the Sunday at 3. And they had 32 teams in their upper bracket, and it makes more sense if you should, as I said, you should be having your top teams out, your first or second team out of groups, still having to play a best of 3 to get out of groups again. It doesn't make sense. What's the point of having groups if you're then playing a game to get out of groups again? It does.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, dude. Like, I don't really understand the logic to it. I do think, in a way, that whole segment of that first knockout stage sort of thing can just be fucked off. Like, I don't really see the point of it. To me, it just does, like you've kind of said, add an extra couple of hours onto the kind of schedule when it doesn't need to. I mean, there are other ways of doing it as well. I mean, obviously, certain people have like suggested doing like a Swiss format, which again, I'm gonna say it's a near enough every format I fucking mentioned, but it's like it's so hard to implement a thing like Swiss formats without decent seedings at the very least. Like,
You'd also need to know how many teams in advance.
Exactly right, and well, I mean, this is the thing. I remember mentioned it previously as well. Like one of the ESL qualifiers that they ran, and they ran the Swiss formats in order to do it, and because of everything was left so late and teams were still signing up late and everything, it just screwed the whole thing up ridiculously. And plus, a lot of people just didn't understand the whole concept of what Swiss format was, I guess, as well. But yeah, I mean, there's various options. I mean, so you've got like obviously UK LAN seem to be running like round robin group stages predominantly at the moment, and then kind of going into single elim. Well, they go into double elim the vast majority of the times. I think Epic does it, iSeries does it for the vast majority. Yeah, I'm still just going for GSL. That's what I'd like to see. I think it makes it a bit more even in groups as well, at the very least, in terms of stopping teams from playing the tier 7 teams they don't want to be playing. At least you kind of, instead of playing those tier 7 teams all the time, you might be able to play a tier 2 or tier 3 teams within groups, because of you end up playing the winner of the other section essentially.
I think you. Sorry, just to interrupt that. I think with that, I think what you would have to do is you would have to have an event where they literally come out and say, "Okay, we're running this. You're signing up at your own kind of like
peril."
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, because you're not going to know until you experiment with it. While I understand, like, obviously we just spoke about it, saying John can't really come out and say we'll experiment with a format. You can't kind of like dump it on them on the day. If you did it a couple of weeks in advance or a month in advance and say, look, we want to try this format because we want to see if we can implement it for future events, right? Then teams are going to go yay or nay, right?
But I mean, that's kind of literally what I was touching on, in terms of that's what I'd like to see, say, like before an iSeries or before an Epic LAN in future. So like literally 2 weeks, a month before the event, if they can, is to kind of put that public information out there and be like, look, this is definitively the format that we're going to be using. Because I mean, obviously they must get enough of it in the feedback forms and things like that they give out, in terms of people moaning about the tournament formats and things. So I mean, it must be a well-known issue to them, but at the same point, like you said, I mean, there was that Epic LAN as well that I remember, which was, I think it might have been Epic 18 maybe, which was the kind of one where they put like, it was you, Frag-O-Matic and Bulldog, I think.
90.
Where we ended up doing that like free. And to be fair, I didn't actually mind that in the way that it was done, but because of it was all done very last minute and the information wasn't, then as soon as people kind of see it and they don't understand, everyone jumps the gun and starts making conclusions, right? And that's what leads to the whole like outcry that people make from it a lot of the time, is because of it's kind of a last minute notice that they find out about it, more so than people actively having that information beforehand. But yeah, I mean, look, I think at the end of the day, there's a lot to work on tournaments wise. I mean, I do know UK Masters and Insomnia, from the people that are there, are genuinely working very hard to try and improve it as it goes forward. Same as Epic LAN. I mean, from an event perspective as a whole, then I guess, like you said it earlier in terms of Epic, like you always go to Epic, and it has got that. I think everyone attests to that fact in terms of Epic is that more friendlier LAN. It's that the environment wise is a bit better. You don't feel like you're being robbed blind. Feel like paying like £10 for a fucking Subway, which you can't even toast. I don't understand that. Why do like Jesus? Anyway, but yeah, like for me, I don't want to do it and come across as I'm like shit talking multiplayer or things like that. Because the fact of the matter is, I think everyone that works there will probably tell you the same thing in terms of it is a lot of money in order to go to it these days. And I mean, don't get me wrong, Epic's not fully cheap, but in terms of just the costs of while you're there, in terms of like food and things like that, and hotels are nowhere near as expensive as what it is in comparison to going around Birmingham at that time frame. For you, like, is there any fundamentals that you think each event could improve on going forward?
Epic LAN, I think they're doing in the right direction anyway. I think if you force something on Epic LAN, I don't think it would necessarily work. I think that just needs to come. They need to grow organically. I'm using that just because I know people don't know that from some casters. But I think you just need to let Epic go as it's going, because it's attracting more of the bigger teams. Even if they're mixes, they're still going. Prize pool could have some work on, but then again, they're limited. Multiplayer, on the other hand, they need to scrap the whole thing and start again. Whether or not that's how they would do that, they literally just burn the LAN.
Yeah, I mean, I find it really difficult to talk about iSeries now, in fairness, because I don't want to do these sort of episodes and time again because I love people like Charlie, I love people like Jesse, I love people like John, and I know they are incredibly limited, and a lot of things are out of their control before anything,
I get
right?
That.
Like,
don't take me as
but yeah, as an event itself, like, to me, I don't really like it when I go there. I don't really enjoy going to an iSeries. I enjoy speaking to some of the people that go there, and you know what I mean. But for the price that you're paying for it, I don't. And in fairness, one of the feedback emails that I put was, I get the point that prices and everything can't really be controlled from those people specifically, and it's the uppers that decide all that stuff. But at the same point, more should then try and be done in terms of making people feel as if there is value for money. And I think that the lack of marketing, the lack of content around the esports side of it and the CS side, like they had a CWL event, like COD World League event at the last iSeries as well, for Call of Duty, doing all these international events, and they had so much social media presence and everything like that. And I get that they're putting that in, so there's more money going to it and blah blah blah. But the amount of like online marketing presence and content presence that I feel like certain organizations and players, like if that was coming their way, at least it would make you feel a bit more valued going to the event sort of thing. Because of, like, at the end of the day, we get the point that iSeries is predominantly an exhibition based, like Wizzo just thought, fuck it, I don't care about esports anymore and let's just focus on the money. But like, to me, it's just kind of disheartening, man, because I see it and I see people enjoy Epic a lot, and I don't really find many people that speak many positives about the BYOC at an iSeries, and to me, that's not good going forward, is it? Like, you're not going to have, for all the time that you've got an event that people don't enjoy going to, then it just means that for whenever there is that chance that someone else does come along and invest and make that sort of tournament, that people will jump ship as soon as a better opportunity comes along.
I don't think it'd be long before. I think the only saving grace they have is UK Masters right now.
Yeah, but I mean, but that's the thing. UK Masters is essentially a separate thing now. It's not like, I know they
I know it is a separate thing, but they still integrate it on like the first night of BYOC or whatever they do it. Like, it still gets you like two decent teams going that could potentially play in the BYOC. So then, obviously, it starts off a chain effect of other teams still wanting to go. I think it wouldn't take much if a couple of teams said we're not going, or multiplayer, or they said to multiplayer we're not going because we don't like your tournament, right? Then I think they would start to. I wouldn't even care if they just come out and acknowledged it, right? If they come out and said, yeah, we understand BYOC isn't our priority, right? But there's nothing publicly to say. They just carry on going because they know teams are going to go.
I think because there's been so many like consistent issues with it that people have always had over the last like 5, 10, and for certain people even fucking 20 events at this point, right? Like, because of there's certain things that they've always pinpointed, and those issues still haven't been fixed for all the time that prices continuously increase and things like that, then I do find it very hard for them to kind of realistically, I judge it at the moment that people go to iSeries because of what else do they have to go to, right? Like that is the point of principle of it. Like orgs don't enjoy and teams don't enjoy paying out the amount of money they have to. Prize pool wise, I don't want to start shit talking at the end of the day. I'm going to say it's like 50 times in the event, but like at the end of the day, BYOCs are not cheap to run as an event. It is not cheap at all. But at the same point, like when you've had that same level of prize pool near enough for a consistent amount of time, or you go back like 10, 12, 15 events and the prize pool was bigger than what it is now, sort of thing.
Yeah,
You're looking and you're just kind of like, there's a problem here. Like as much as, sure, I'm not denying that there's probably reasons, and the reasons that they've all kind of sprouted out before, but at the same point, I don't see, they're not giving enough incentives for people to want to go and actually enjoy the fucking event anymore, and that's where I see the big problem, right? And that's why Epic to me is better in that scenario. But the problem is even as Epic grows, the same thing could essentially happen to them, right? Like you've seen it with iSeries, how they've grown from like Newbury Racecourse to as they've kind of gone onto the NEC where they are now, and it didn't start off that way. It's just naturally developed as the money's come in. So the same thing could essentially happen to Epic. You never know, I guess. But yeah, so it's definitely an interesting one. But...
I mean, we'll touch on it quickly, but like when I didn't go to, I think it was part of me that actually sat there and thought, thank God,
yeah.
I don't. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't care about all the memes going on Twitter. I'm sat there thinking, at least I don't have to endure that main stage next to me while my mouse vibrates.
Well, I think
my chair hurts my back.
What one was it? Was it I-55, I-56? Like the first, whatever the first one that they moved like to the NEC, and the main stage was literally like you had the vibrations going through into BYOC, and everyone was just like, I've just paid so much money, and I can't even hear.
56. We had.
Yeah, that was a.
Stuff, and Pow was slamming his mouse because you couldn't hear anything.
Yeah, that was a shambolic one.
You know it's bad when strats then turn into, they're not going to hear us, let's rush B. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you don't want that when you've just paid out fucking a hell of a lot of money. But I mean, you just touched on it there, so fuck it, we'll go for it.
Oh.
Emp the Lan Dodger. I mean, it's a difficult one, even from my perspective. Like, I know there's been certain events that you've planned to go to, and it's just not worked out for one reason or another. And so, like, realistically, for the amount of time that you've been playing, if we're going to say there's 6 events every year, like UK wise, obviously you can't necessarily, I think you said you can essentially make 5 available, but throughout the teams you haven't been to that many events, all things considered, right? So how did the whole land dodging meme come about? Do you think it was valid?
It was because of 59. I was all set to go, basically.
Yeah.
I started a new job in August, so I'm on like that, what they call like your probational period, whatever.
Sure.
And then I was meant to have the meeting on the week of LAN to like make sure if I got the job or not, like full time or whatever. And it just so happened that it fell on the Thursday or the Friday. I can't remember. Friday.
Yeah.
So I could have possibly made it to LAN, but I would have either missed groups. Like basically, what my work said is your appointment can be as early as 9 and it could be as late as 12.
Yeah.
So if I had it 9, I could have got there. If it was 12, then yeah. Well, I'm not going to go there for like. Well, in their case, they didn't even get out. So do you know what I mean? I would have got there and be like, "Well, it's home time now, right? Wasting my time." But the joke kind of came around because of that. Because obviously I said I'm going out, and then I didn't go. And then I didn't help myself, where I just kind of like went along with it and kind of just like. But in terms of other events, I've said it openly. Like, I don't want to go to iSeries. So people go, "Are you going to this LAN? Like, or the upcoming iSeries?" I go, "No," and they go, "Oh, you're dodging again." Like, what? Like I've said since day one, I don't want to go to iSeries events. It's as I said, like Epic. The other ones was. If anyone ever wants to question my integrity here, I've got the refunds, right? It's just everyone else lets me down. But in terms of my other team, like we plan our events, but we've never come out and all said, yeah, we're going to this event. All of us dodge. It was only that one event where I didn't go, and then people jumped on the bandwagon with it.
Do you think that people have kind of put that to you though, in terms of like, because of say like there's been in the previous times you've played, you've not been to as many events as maybe what you could have to one reason or another as well. So do you think people just jump the gun on that a little bit in terms of because if you haven't been to certain ones previous and then you're now not going to this one, that's where it.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. But to be honest, I don't care. Like, if I know you well enough and you come out and say like, oh, Emp, you're a Lan Dodger, I'll just come out and gun you some, myself. But like, there are people that just jump on it and you think you don't even know me. Like you comment on my Twitter and be like, haha, you're dodging again, or you're a Lan Dodger, or because I put up a status about because we're going to Frag-O-Matic in September.
Yeah.
And I've paid out of my own pocket. That's paid, right?
If you dodge that, you're fucked. By the way,
I mean, like
last minute scenario comes up. Can't go, boys. Sorry.
People like you're dodging, like because I'm going to front the money and then dodge. Like, but there's people have come to me and go, oh yeah, you're going to dodge, and I think you've spoken to me twice. Like, how do you know me? Like, just get off my.
I don't know. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. People literally see one thing on Twitter, don't they? And they jump to like conclusions straight away, and they have a judgment about a certain person from that one fucking tweet that they've made.
In the grand scheme of things, I don't care. Like you can call me a Lan Dodger, and I just laugh about it. Like, I don't care. Realistically, I'm too old for that. Too old.
I'm too old for this shit.
Yeah, bro.
But that makes sense. So I mean, I think we've been over the vast majority of stuff that we did kind of need to go through. Like we'll do it on the gimmicky question to an extent as well, and then we'll go over a few like one or two small other bits. But the gimmick question for every episode has been if you had to choose 4 pro players to play alongside yourself, who would they be and why? So obviously specific like roles as well though. So like if you're going to go in as the IGL, then obviously you need 4 other people in whatever roles you want them.
I'm not going IGL. I'm going to swap my role.
Fucking all right, hit me.
And I'm going to go for Hunden as my IGL.
Okay. I respect it.
And the reason why, right, not because of his ability, because he is a noob, but I would want to find out if what all the Danish IGLs say about him is true. If he is genuinely like some genius mastermind.
I mean, I'm a bit on the fence with it, I guess. Like, I think a lot, like, especially in recent times as well. I mean, who's he playing for now? Tricked, isn't it? But like, yeah, I've seen a lot of comments about him and a lot of people praise him. But then obviously the point's always going to be is as much praise as there's been, but he's not quite made it to that next level where people might expect him to be. But at the same point, yeah, from everyone, like,
would you not be curious just to see? Do you know what I mean? Like,
I think there's a lot of players that kind of fall into that bracket though. Like, especially say like you could even go to say like in the past time, say like a Kiyoshima type, where obviously like he had that whole scenario of being like the perception around him, and obviously now you look at him and he's final after final sort of thing, right? So yeah. I think every player's got a bit of personality about them or certain things that people have stated. But I mean, you could probably do the same thing from a UK perspective, right? And list certain players that, oh, he's done that, he's not done this, and they've kind of developed differently in different teams, I guess. But I respect it. I respect the reasons for putting Hunden as an IGL. So if you're not IGLing, where are you playing?
I'm just going to be your bitch player. I'm just going to be
the support, like just.
Yep. Chuck your flashes and look pretty. My other 2 players would be, so I'd have Apex.
Okay.
Xantares. Just because you would want to know how he plays.
Yeah, very weird.
You want to see? Yeah. I'd want to see his fragging ability in a team. But well, this kind of contradicts itself when you say me and Hunden in a lineup. Yeah. But you'd kind of want to see Xantares in a team that would be challenging. Do you know what I mean? Like, so say for example, if he ever joined FaZe or something,
sure.
You'd want to see it and you'd want to play with him just to see. And then my last player would be, well, you got to have him, coldzera.
I was waiting for it. I knew it'd be rounded out by Cold just because the guy's a fucking legend.
Who else can you have? Like, do you know what I mean? You just have to go with coldzera.
Yeah, no, I respect it. I mean, it's a solid 5 lineup. It would be an interesting one. Might have to put a bit more time into playing the same level there, Emp. But if you're playing with those 4, I respect it. I think the Hunden IGL one's kind of been the intriguing one out of that. I think near enough everyone I spoke to has put one intriguing person at the very least into the box. So it is interesting to see people's reasons as to why they'd like to play with certain people. I think everyone's like had those thoughts of certain people that they would like to play with in the pro scene and why, because you've watched them play in a certain way, right? And you're like, oh wow, that would be really good to kind of emulate that or play with someone that can do those sort of things. But no, I respect it. So I mean, when I spoke to you beforehand as well, you said that you had like a few projects kind of ongoing and things like that. So I mean, do you want to fill us in on the juicy details of that before we round it off?
So obviously I can't say too much about some of them, but I'm in the process of making a league with an American organization. It's a long, ongoing project because everything has to be done properly, especially if basically they run it in America and they want to bring it over to UK/Europe. It's not concrete. They're just basically how it came about was one of the owners knows a school friend of mine from another game.
Okay.
So then he was saying, "Oh, he plays Counter Strike." They were like, "Oh, we run an American one, blah blah blah." So he started speaking to me, and it's nothing concrete, but basically I spoke to a couple of UK teams that I wanted to get involved with it, just see what the interest would be. If we are going to do it, it probably won't be done till closer towards the end of the new year because obviously prize money, anti-cheat, etc., etc. We're not going to half-heart it like UK gaming tours.
Shots fired.
Touching on other things, so I do own a prac group, and it has grown in stature in the last probably since the start of the new year. Like we've been turning over teams, inviting new caliber of teams. I do try and give UK teams a chance. However,
is it an invite-only prac group? I assume, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, how it was initially, it was for main teams, intermediate, and then some invited teams.
Okay.
But we found an issue with a lot of the intermediate teams was because of the regional leagues, you can kind of fluke your way into that division,
Sure.
if that makes sense. So when we invited some of the teams, they tended to be, some of them were even weaker than teams in open. So we've kind of had to limit who we invite for intermediate, but we've now managed to invite some Premier teams into it. We have, if I just bring up the document actually, just so I can list off, not teams themselves,
Sure.
teams from each division kind of thing. Here, I'll just bring up the document. Come on, computer.
Potato. Potato.
Right, so we have 56 main teams out of the 88 that are in there at the moment.
Sure.
So then we've got 13 intermediate who all came up from their regional divisions currently. So this is all up to date. I've literally done it in the last 3-4 days.
Sure.
Then we've got 10 invited teams. So we've got teams that don't necessarily play ESEA, but equivalent. So
Sure.
ESL Major League.
Yeah.
I'm in the process of building that up. I've had nothing but good feedback from a lot of the teams. I mean, Rezu from CX has praised it recently. The UK team invited. Like, it's just something as a side project that I'm doing to try and give UK teams a chance because not a lot of UK teams will be able to play some of the teams that are in there. Do you know what I mean?
I think from my perspective, I mean, even with teams that I've had or teams that I spoke to, like finding the right prac groups has always been a bit of a pain in the ass, right? Especially because of like the notoriously like a lot of UK teams don't like to scrim other UK teams, especially, right? And even more so, that's probably not the best way to practice considering the caliber of UK teams for the most part. So being able to scrim those teams that are in especially when you start touching on the Premier Division teams as well, or those that are the equivalent, and there are a lot of decent teams still in intermediate as well for sure. So I think that is something that is needed, and if we can kind of like have people like yourself that can to an extent prioritize putting some like UK teams in there to give them the ability to practice against better teams, then that's going to work out better, right?
I mean, there's teams in there like you would probably go, why are they in there? But if you practice efficiently and you're not total noobs, then I will give you a chance. The issue I have is there's a lot of UK teams that have come to me and they go, oh, can you invite me to this practice? And I give them a chance. And then I message them a week later and they go, oh yeah, we died by the way.
Like, since I've started, that looked like the teams and players like looking for team spreadsheet, it is literally fucking phenomenal. In people that come to me, they'll be like, yeah, I've just joined this org. Literally 2 days later, yeah, nah, like 2 of us have left already. I'm like, well, why have you left? You'll be like, we just weren't right for each other. I was like, so why did you join the team literally after one fucking scrim? Like literally, like people, but they do it, they pick up players so quickly. And I understand if it's literally like a fucking pro player comes along and available, like pick him up, yeah, like give it a whirl. But so many people just give complete randoms a go after a couple of scrims scrims, and then it's like they wonder why things don't work out for them, because after a week they've realised that that player's shit or their attitude's shit or whatever it necessarily is. Like, take your time when you're deciding to play for a team or pick up a certain person, right? It drives me up the fucking wall.
So I went from, I think I started off, when I started off the group, right, I gave about 20 UK teams a chance, right? Just because how we started off the group, I needed active teams to attract other teams. It was like that, that
it
deadly
makes
circle.
sense. It makes sense.
And within 2 months, I think I kicked about 80% of those teams, so about 16 teams.
No.
So I gave up. Like, there's UK teams that come to me and go, I've got a new lineup. Can you invite me to that prep group I was in a couple months ago? No, just go away.
Just
Come
not
back to me in a
worth it.
couple months. And then the last project is I do it on the not slide, but I do it when I got. If there are teams that are up and coming, or teams that need help or want help, I am accessible to be approached. I mean, I help a couple of teams at the moment, not coaching as such, because I still have to devote time to my teams. But if you're genuine, guys, and you have the, and you're stable to a point, UK again, I will help you. So this goes out to any team that are out there. I don't know if you said contact details or whatever, but if you need help, I can help and will help when I can. I do it with Emp again. No, as recently, like I've been helping. Just to put some names out there, the notorious 10th seed, aka the Goose House.
Yeah.
I try and help them guys, lovely guys. I'm helping a couple of other lower end teams. Like, people are going to go, oh, but you're not a top end, the top end UK player. But then again, I consider myself arrogant or not, or wrong, whatever, as one of the better ideas around. So
yeah, I mean, I think the way I take it is especially like, obviously you're not directly saying, yeah, all tier 1 teams, I'm here for advice, you know what I mean? It's obviously dependent on the teams as well, but I think in fairness, this is one thing that I will actually say to a lot of players out there. Like, if there's certain people that you think that you might be able to get advice from or can help you, just fucking ask them, and ask them in a nice way. Like Snod said the same thing last week, you've said the same thing in this one, in terms of if people genuinely come up to you and ask you in a nice way, or like message you in a nice way, just asking, look, is there any tips, any suggestions, anything like that, like just ask people, and they will genuinely a lot of the time give you the benefit of the doubt and try and apply a bit of time and help you out in those scenarios. But when you start acting like a dickhead, they're not going to help you do it. It's as simple as that.
Just one thing I will say to people that approach me: don't come to me and go, can you coach full time? No, I won't, and I can't, and I don't want to either. So please, I've had too many of that recently. My DMs are full of it, so no.
All right, no sliding into Emp's DMs, lads. It's over. He's closed the door.
I'm taking.
He's in a relationship. But on that note, good sir, is there any final shout outs you would like to make towards the end of said video?
Yes.
Besides
my girlfriend
blanks.
for getting me a lift here on time, so I can have to see it.
All right, shout out to Emp's girlfriend.
Yeah, shout out to my girlfriend. Blanks for being a noob. You need to reply to my Steam messages.
Ooh.
The rest of my team, they're all idiots. And thank you for having me on the interview.
Thank you very much, sir. All right, ladies and gents, that has been Meet the Scene episode 6, featuring Emperor of Rasta Gaming currently. It's been lovely speaking to you, good sir, and we will wrap it up there. So thank you very much for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, hate, whatever it is you feel like doing best, and we will see you soon. Peace.